Chapter 2564, Attendant? The young Star Lord's expression became rather ugly. Originally, his bodyguard had wanted to teach Chen a lesson, but in the end, the bodyguard made a fool of himself under the influence of the laws of space. This left the young Star Lord humiliated. After all, he was the young Star Lord, a supreme existence on the star brilliance plane. His foster father, the Nine Brilliant Star Lord, was a peak expert only second to Grand Exalts in the Saints' world. No matter where he went, he was respected and revered, where no one dared to offend him. But now, he had received such treatment in the Tian Yuan clan, which made the young Star Lord furious. However, just when the young Star Lord was about to throw a fit, a powerful sword intent suddenly permeated the surroundings. At that moment, the young Star Lord felt like he had become submerged in a domain of sword chi. Sword chi filled every inch of the space around him as if the region around him had become a sea of sword chi. Chen had drawn the 9-star sword of heavenly ways and 9 illusionary stars had appeared. With hazy starlight, he directly stabbed out. With that, the space pulsed, and the sharp tip of the sword seemed to stab through space, directly vanishing. However, in the next moment, the tip appeared out of nowhere in front of the young Star Lord's bodyguard. With powerful sword chi, it stabbed forward like it was unstoppable. Oh no! The old man's face changed drastically, becoming filled with shock. He could sense lethal danger from the strike. He was a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime. It should have been easy for him to deal with Chen, but now that he had discovered that Chen could actually threaten him, he was filled with disbelief. Chen's attack used the laws of space. Not only was it unexpected, but it was extremely fast as well, so the old man could not respond in time. Spurt. The tip of the sword stabbed into the old man's chest with powerful sword chi and the power of stars. The old man could not even dodge or block Chen's attack. The strike was just too quick, and it was even enhanced with the laws of space, making it even more difficult to guard against. The scene right now was extremely strange. Chen stood over 10 meters away in a posture of stabbing out. However, only half of the 9-star sword of heavenly ways was visible. The tip appeared over 10 meters away, buried in the old man's chest. It seemed like the sword was broken. This was the wondrous use of the laws of space. He could use the laws of space to directly affect the space there. Chen's hand trembled, and the sword immediately erupted with sword chi, blowing open a bowl-sized hole in the old man's chest. His body flew out of the hall from the great force. The young Star Lord was stunned. He stared at Chen and the old man blankly. He was left at a temporary loss. He had never thought that there would actually be someone bold enough to heavily injure his bodyguard in his face in the Saints' world. This was the first time something like this had happened to him in his 1,000 years of being alive. Squads of armored guards surged over from everywhere outside the hall. They surrounded the old man. Even a few infinite primes had come. Patriarch, do we arrest this person? Protector Shuang clasped his fist outside. Ever since he was saved by Chen on the Delight Plane, Protector Shuang served the Tian Yuan clan with even greater loyalty. There's no need. Everyone can go, including you. Chen stowed his sword away slowly and said with composure. Yes, sir. With that, all the guards outside the hall immediately vanished. Even the infinite primes had left. It would be best if not too many people knew about this matter, or it would have a negative influence on the Tian Yuan clan. After all, the Tian Yuan clan no longer possessed Ming Dong. Young master, I'm useless. I'm not Chen's opponent. The old man stood up and arrived before the young Star Lord, telling him in shame. He coldly glanced at Chen from time to time. You useless trash, piss off. The young Star Lord's expression was very ugly. He glanced past Chen with a sunken face and said in a cold voice, the Tian Yuan clan, what an impressive clan, to disrespect me like this. Do you believe that I can wipe you off the surface of this world with a single word? Even your merit with the heavenly palace of Bishing won't be able to keep you safe. The young Star Lord was completely fearless. He was still very confident, showing no fear towards the heavenly palace of Bishing at all. According to his knowledge, the heavenly palace of Bishing no longer possessed a grand exalt. They only survived because of their first majesty, while he had the blood-tier grand exalt behind him. Is there a need for you to be so angry, young Star Lord? My master and the renowned brilliant Star Lord had close ties, speaking of the past. Why must we juniors make our seniors unhappy? Young Star Lord, don't you agree? A pleasant voice rang out. The voice seemed to be enchanting, enough to sway the minds of people. Those with weaker wills would probably fall into a trance the moment they heard this voice. The young Star Lord's eyes became lost at that moment as well. It was like his soul had been stolen. He subconsciously answered, yeah. However, right after he had said that, he immediately returned to his senses. A gleam of interest immediately flickered through his eyes, and he stared at the entrance. Shangguan Mu'er walked through the entrance in her violet dress. She was graceful and slender, possessing great beauty and an otherworldly presence. Her dark eyes were as deep and profound as onyx, and her pupils shone with a wondrous charm. Just a single glance seemed to be enough to steal the souls of people. She was extremely beautiful, almost picturesque and unrealistic. She was flawless. Even in the vast saints' world that was filled with talents and beauties, there were not many people who could match up to her. Mu'er, why have you come? Chen frowned slightly. The young Star Lord had originally come because of Mu'er. Now that she had actually come here, the situation became even more difficult to deal with. The brilliant Star Lord is an acquaintance of my master. Since the young Star Lord has come, it only makes sense for me to come meet him, Shangguan Mu'er said gently. She carried the zither of the demonic cry in her arms habitually, arriving beside Chen. You're the successor of the third ancestor, Shangguan Mu'er. The successor of the third ancestor truly does have a justifiable reputation. Even I almost fell for your tricks. The young Star Lord stared at Shangguan Mu'er with shining eyes as his heart beat heavily. He had already heard about how beautiful Dao Gongming had described Shangguan Mu'er to be on the star brilliance plane. Back then, he did not take it too seriously. He only thought it was exaggerated. However, now that he had personally seen Shangguan Mu'er, he understood that he was wrong. Shangguan Mu'er really was as pretty as Dao Gongming had described her to be. Not only did she possess the beauty of a goddess, but Shangguan Mu'er even possessed a unique bearing that deeply attracted the young Star Lord. Shangguan Mu'er frowned. Her voice immediately became cold as she said, Young Star Lord, please watch yourself. Do not disrespect my master. The young Star Lord seemed to become rather infatuated. He stared straight at Shangguan Mu'er as his eyes burned with interest. She has already departed. Is there a need to be so uptight? I just happen to be lacking a female attendant now that I've come to the cloud plane to train. Shangguan Mu'er, just be my female attendant. Serve me until my training ends. I'll ignore the disrespect the Tian Yuan clan has shown to me in return. Chapter 2565. Tossed out of the clan. Shangguan Mu'er stiffened slightly when she heard the young Star Lord's words. She stared at the young Star Lord in disappointment and sighed gently. The brilliant Star Lord is renowned, a supreme figure in the saints' world, revered by all. But I never thought that his foster son would be like this. Young Star Lord, you have disappointed me far too much. You are not worthy of being the brilliant Star Lord's son. The young Star Lord's eyes turned cold from that. He immediately slammed the table. How dare you speak ill of me? Shangguan Mu'er, do you really think that I'm afraid of touching you just because you're the successor of the third ancestor? If you anger me, do you believe that I only need a single sentence to make you kneel before me, where your life will be in my hands? The young Star Lord was extremely furious. Who was he? He had once been someone that everyone would butter up to no matter where he went, yet he had been looked down upon again and again now that he had come to the Tian Yuan clan. He felt like he had been disrespected. He struggled to accept this. Shangguan Mu'er sighed again. Young Star Lord, you're too much of a wastrel. You need to understand that you're only a god king, and all your glory comes from the 9 Brilliant Star Lord. Without the 9 Brilliant Star Lord, you're only a cultivator with a little talent. Is there any need for you to be so arrogant? Shangguan Mu'er did not become angered for the 9 Brilliant Star Lord's sake because she had heard from the wind ancestor of the Taoist sect of divine sound that the 9 Brilliant Star Lord had indeed been on good terms with the third ancestor. However, Jian Chen was not as forgiving at Shangguan Mu'er. The young Star Lord's words had completely infuriated him. His eyes were icy cold as killing intent appeared. He said coldly, "Make Mu'er kneel? Hold Mu'er's life in your hands? I don't believe you have that capability." Jian Chen had already arrived before the young Star Lord as he said that. He directly grabbed the young Star Lord by the neck and said, "My Tian Yuan clan does not welcome you. Piss off." With that, Jian Chen tossed the young Star Lord away in an extremely brutal manner. The young Star Lord was unable to resist at all. He was thrown high into the air, flying directly over the walls of the Tian Yuan clan before landing on the ground outside in an extremely miserable state. Young Master. The expression of the young Star Lord's bodyguard changed drastically. He glared at Jian Chen before leaving the Tian Yuan clan in a flash. "Mu'er, you shouldn't have come. The young Star Lord is a wastrel, and by the looks of him, he's extremely lustful. Now that he has seen you, he'll probably never forget about you and stop at nothing because of you." Jian Chen turned around and said to Shangguan Mu'er after tossing the young Star Lord out. It was as if he had just completed a task not worth mentioning. Shangguan Mu'er sighed gently. She was extremely disappointed. "I only came to see the young Star Lord because of the close ties my master had with the 9 Brilliant Star Lord. After all, no matter how you look at it, the young Star Lord is the 9 Brilliant Star Lord's son. But I never thought he would actually be such a person. It was my miscalculation. Young Master, are you fine?" The young Star Lord's bodyguard, Mu Lin, carefully helped the young Star Lord up from the ground outside the Tian Yuan clan. His face was sunken and killing intent surged in his heart. The young Star Lord possessed such great status, yet he had been tossed out by the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan. In Mu Lin's eyes, a humiliation so great could only be settled with blood. The young Star Lord said nothing. He stared at his dusty, luxurious robes. Currently, he was rather stunned. Who's that? It looks like he was thrown out of the Tian Yuan clan." At this moment, a discussion broke out. Nearby, a luxurious carriage slowly pulled past. The voices of a few young people rang out from it. These people were all envoys sent from large clans or organizations across the Cloud Plain to visit the Tian Yuan clan. Such people would basically appear at the entrance of the Tian Yuan clan daily. And there's someone injured. It looks like the two of them aren't welcomed by the Tian Yuan clan. They probably broke some rules set down by the Tian Yuan clan, which was why they were taught a lesson by the experts of the Tian Yuan clan. You can tell with a single glance that the two of them aren't from our Cloud Plain and that they had no idea that they should not offend the Tian Yuan clan. They tried to abuse their background and status against the Tian Yuan clan and were punished as a result. Who do they think they are, to even disrespect the Tian Yuan clan? There's no one who can protect them for doing something like that to our Tian Yuan clan. The carriage slowly pulled away, but the young Star Lord heard every single word that was uttered. In particular, when the young Star Lord heard their contemptful scoffs taking him lightly, he found it to be jarring to the ear. Like needles, the discussion stabbed at the young Star Lord deeply, causing him to tremble uncontrollably. The Tian Yuan clan. The Tian Yuan clan, the young Star Lord said through gritted teeth. He looked back at the Tian Yuan clan as killing intent filled his eyes. Afterwards, he turned around and left. He left the Dong'an province. He left the Pingtian Empire. At the same time, the Gentle Breeze ancestor opened his eyes in the headquarters of the Four Symbols Alliance. A smear of surprise appeared in his eyes. The young Star Lord came out from the Tian Yuan clan so soon, but it seems like something is off. Has he come into conflict with the Tian Yuan clan? The Gentle Breeze ancestor constantly paid attention to the young Star Lord. When the young Star Lord entered the Tian Yuan clan, he was unable to see what had happened in there because Su Ran had repaired some of the formations. Only when he left the Tian Yuan clan and the Ping Tian Empire did he see something from the young Star Lord's bodyguard, Mu Lin. He immediately managed to infer what had happened in there. The young Star Lord has fallen out with the Tian Yuan clan. One of them has the 9 brilliant Star Lord behind them, while the other has the first majesty of the heavenly palace of Bisheng. This will be a difficult matter to handle. The gentle breeze ancestor furrowed his brows as the light in his eyes flickered. But very soon, gentle breeze ancestor made up his mind. At that moment, he had already made an important decision. He contacted the 4 other people of the Four Symbols Alliance before vanishing strangely. "Young master, where are we going now?" Mu Ling asked carefully outside the Ping Tian Empire. He had most recovered from his wound with God-tier pills, so he was basically fine now. The main reason was that Chen had not been vicious, only teaching him a simple lesson. Otherwise, his wounds would have been even more severe, and it would have been even more difficult for him to recover. The young Star Lord paused. He sank into his thoughts, and he would glance past the majestic fortress behind him from time to time. His eyes were filled with coldness. "Young Star Lord, our Four Symbols Alliance has already prepared a banquet to specially welcome the young Star Lord after his long journey. We do hope the young Star Lord can grant us the honor of visiting our Four Symbols Alliance so that we can fulfill our duties as hosts." The gentle breeze ancestor suddenly appeared and said sincerely with a smile. "All right. Since your Four Symbols Alliance is so kind, I can only disturb you then." The eyes of the young Star Lord lit up. This time, he accepted the Four Symbols Alliance's invitation without a second thought. "It's no disturbance. It's no disturbance at all. The young Star Lord is too kind. It is our honor for you to be able to visit our Four Symbols Alliance." The gentle breeze ancestor was extremely polite. In order to ally themselves with him, the gentle breeze ancestor basically put down all of his pride as a peak expert. After all, this was a major matter that controlled the fate of the Four Symbols Alliance. Chapter 2566. The Young Star Lord's Revenge. The young Star Lord was treated as an honored guest in the headquarters of the Four Symbols Alliance. He was warmly received by the most important members of the Four Symbols Alliance. Apart from the gentle breeze ancestor, the 4 other peak experts of the Four Symbols Alliance appeared as well. They all smiled and treated the young Star Lord very politely. "Yeah. Your Four Symbols Alliance is not bad." The Four Symbols Alliance's attitude swept away the young Star Lord's gloom. As if he had regained his confidence, he immediately stood with his chest held high, his face full of pride. The special banquet of the Four Symbols Alliance was to welcome the young Star Lord after his long journey. There were only 6 people at the table. Aside from the young Star Lord and the gentle breeze ancestor, the 4 others were all decision-makers of the Four Symbols Alliance. One of them was a burly, middle-aged man. His presence was concealed, and he gave off no pulses of energy at all. He seemed just like a mortal. He was Zheng Hu, the peak expert of the Four Symbols Alliance who had broken through recently. The second person was a bald old man. He wore gray robes and seemed to keep an extremely low profile. He seemed very old and had a face filled with wrinkles. Even his ancient eyes were dim. He seemed lifeless. He was Changfeng Yun. Originally, he was the ancestor of the Changfeng clan, a peak clan in the central region of the Cloud Plain. The third person was an old woman. She held a wooden staff, keeping her presence concealed like she had returned to her most basic form. She did not seem to have any special features. This old woman was Gong Ji. Originally, she was the ancestor of the Gong family, a peak clan in the central region. As for the fourth person, he was a man who seemed to be in his 30s. He wore white clothes and seemed refined and rather scholar-like. He was called Wu Lu. Originally, he was the ancestor of a peak sect in the central region, the Snow Mountain sect. Of course, these so-called clans and sects had all become things of the past. Now, all the organizations they controlled had merged together into the current Four Symbols Alliance. As soon as they heard the young Star Lord's evaluation of the Four Symbols Alliance, they secretly rejoiced. The Gentle Breeze ancestor immediately said, "The young Star Lord has only just come to our cloud plane, so you might not be particularly sure about the situation on the cloud plane. Moreover, the young Star Lord is such a great existence that there probably aren't many places on the cloud plane that can match the young Star Lord. Our Four Symbols Alliance just happens to be a place worthy of the young Star Lord, so if the young Star Lord has nowhere to go, you are more than welcome to temporarily settle down in our Four Symbols Alliance. Our Four Symbols Alliance is one of the two rulers of the cloud plane after all. We possessed abundant resources and great strength. Our Four Symbols Alliance will try to satisfy all of the young Star Lord's requests to the best of our ability, Xinghu said among the five expert. He was doing his best to rope in the young Star Lord. As long as they managed to ally themselves with the young Star Lord, they would truly have no need to fear the Righteous Alliance anymore. Even when the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak broke through to the fourth heavenly layer, he would not dare to touch them. You will satisfy all of my requests? The young Star Lord said slowly as a cold light flickered in his eyes. Of course, said the Gentle Breeze ancestor with confidence as his gaze became extremely deep. All right then. I just happen to have a request right now. I didn't bring any particularly powerful guards with me on my journey to the cloud plane, but the Tian Yuan clan offended me recently. I hope you can take action immediately and destroy the Tian Yuan clan. Leave none alive aside from Shangguan Mu'er, said the young Star Lord frigidly. The forces he brought with him this time were insufficient, so he could only seek foreign help to destroy the Tian Yuan clan. The five experts of the Four Symbols Alliance were not surprised at all when they heard that the young Star Lord wanted to destroy the Tian Yuan clan. They all remained very composed. Young Star Lord, the Tian Yuan clan has the support of the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng. If we destroy the Tian Yuan clan, we'll definitely offend the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng, the Gentle Breeze ancestor replied, troubled. What are you scared of? I'm here. So what if they have the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng? The young Star Lord was confident, looking down on everything in the world. Indeed, he possessed the right to do so to a certain degree with his identity and status. His foster father was the Nine Brilliant Star Lord, a supreme expert who stood at the same level as the First Majesty of the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng. Most importantly, his foster father had a Grand Exalt backing him up. On the other hand, the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng only had a First Majesty. The young Star Lord did not take the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng seriously at all. Feel free to do it. If the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng interferes, I'll stand forward. I would like to see just how bold the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng is. Young Star Lord considered himself above everyone else as he spoke arrogantly. Of course, if you're afraid, I'll pay a visit to the Righteous Alliance. The young Star Lord glanced past the five supreme experts fearlessly. The young Star Lord may not know it, but the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak from the Righteous Alliance had close ties with the Tian Yuan clan. In the past, when one of their members, Houston, was in danger in the central region, he was saved by the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak, Xinghu said. The Righteous Alliance also has the young master of the Tong family, Tong Tian, who has close ties with Chen as well, the Gentle Breeze ancestor added. The young Star Lord frowned when he heard that. He vaguely sensed that getting the Righteous Alliance to destroy the Tian Yuan clan might not be very realistic. In the end, after a series of discussions, the Four Symbols Alliance did not agree to the young Star Lord's request of destroying the Tian Yuan clan. Instead, they gave him some experts under the guise of being his guards. They would be specially in charge of his safety on the cloud plane. All of these guards followed the young Star Lord's commands. These guards were not weak. There were 3 5th heavenly layer chaotic primes and 2 4th layer chaotic primes. They were great elders of the Four Symbols Alliance. Aside from all that, there were over a dozen infinite primes as well, along with a great group of godhood guards. This force was no weaker than the Tian Yuan clan. As a matter of fact, it even exceeded them. The Four Symbols Alliance's plan was extremely simple. They would not directly take part in anything. Instead, They would give the young Star Lord a group of experts for him to use against the Tian Yuan clan. That way, even if the heavenly palace of Bishing was offended, the young Star Lord would be the one to bear the burden. Even if the heavenly palace of Bishing decided to look into the matter, the Four Symbols Alliance had plenty of reasons to explain that they were uninvolved. The Four Symbols Alliances wanted to ally themselves with the young Star Lord without falling out with the Tian Yuan clan. The Four Symbols Alliance is a group of cowards. They're even afraid of offending a mere Tian Yuan clan. The young Star Lord returned to the residence that the Four Symbols Alliance had prepared for him after the banquet. He was unhappy. Young Master, you can't actually blame the Four Symbols Alliance for this. After all, the Tian Yuan clan does have the support of the Heavenly Palace of Bishing. The Heavenly Palace of Bishing is too tremendous of an existence to the Four Symbols Alliance. However, the Four Symbols Alliance is still rather thoughtful. The guards they've arranged for young Master are enough to destroy the Tian Yuan clan. The young Star Lord's bodyguard, Mu Ling, said to one side, according to reliable sources, the Tian Yuan clan only has a single fifth heavenly layer chaotic prime old woman left out of all their true experts. The rest are all infinite primes. On the other hand, the young Star Lord has 3/5 heavenly layer chaotic primes and 2/4 heavenly layer chaotic primes. This force is enough to deal with a 6th heavenly layer chaotic prime. Contact the 5 great elders of the Four Symbols Alliance and immediately set off with me. I'll go destroy the Tian Yuan clan right now. As for that successor of that third ancestor, I'll definitely give her proper treatment, the young Star Lord said through gritted teeth. As soon as he thought of Shengguan Mu'er's great beauty, he felt his insides flare up. Chapter 2567, Flames of War. Very soon, the 5 chaotic primes assigned to the young Star Lord appeared before him. The 5 of them were already old men in pure white clothes. They seemed rather sagely. They were figures who possess authority in the Four Symbols Alliance, all holding the position of Great Elder. They basically stood above most people, where only the 5 ancestor-like figures across the entire alliance could order them around. However, when they faced the young Star Lord, they dared not put on any airs at all. They concealed their presences and did their best to appear ordinary, clasping their fists at the young Star Lord politely. He was the child of the 9 brilliant Star Lord. His status was simply too great. Who knows how many years it had been since someone with a status like him had appeared on the cloud plane. As a result, the 5 of them appeared to be overcautious before the young Star Lord. They understood that, let alone them, chaotic primes, but even the peak experts of the cloud plane were nothing in the eyes of supreme experts renowned across the Saints' world like the 9 brilliant Star Lord. The 5 of you immediately gather everyone and go destroy the Tian Yuan clan. I don't want the patriarch, Chen, to live for a day longer, the young Star Lord said coldly. What he went through in the Tian Yuan clan was the greatest humiliation in his life. He could only wipe this humiliation from the slate with the blood of the entire Tian Yuan clan. However, when the 5 great elders heard his demand, their faces changed slightly and became ugly. They glanced at one another and communicated secretly. Although we're the young Star Lord's guards, and we need to listen to him for everything, we'll probably be doomed after the Heavenly Palace of Bishing decides to look into the matter if we really listen to him and destroy the Tian Yuan clan. That's right. The young Star Lord is the 9 brilliant Star Lord's son. The Heavenly Palace of Bishing naturally won't make things difficult for the young Star Lord for the sake of the 9 brilliant Star Lord, but we'll face a different situation. With the young Star Lord's ability, he probably won't be able to protect us from the Heavenly Palace of Bishing unless the 9 brilliant Star Lord steps forward. Do you think the 9 brilliant Star Lord will personally stand up for us? Is that even a question? Why would the 9 brilliant Star Lord fall out with the Heavenly Palace of Bishing just for us, a few puny chaotic primes? The 5 elders were all monsters who had lived for who knows how long. Naturally, they were not dim-witted, so they thought of a lot in that moment. They communicated secretly such that both the young Star Lord and his bodyguard, Mu Lin, failed to sense it. The Tian Yuan clan cannot be destroyed, the 5 great elders thought as they reached the same conclusion. They wanted to ally themselves with the young Star Lord, yet they dared not offend the heavenly palace of Bisheng either. Seeing how the 5 great elders still did nothing, the young Star Lord's face immediately sank. He said with displeasure, "Why aren't you doing it? Haven't you heard my words?" One of the great elders smiled resplendently and said, "Young master, please listen to something I have to say." "Speak." The young Star Lord seemed impatient. "Since the Tian Yuan clan has offended young master, we naturally have to make them pay a heavy price. However, if we destroy them in one stroke, it'll be far too easy on Chen. As a result, we should gnaw away at the Tian Yuan clan step by step and gobble them up bit by bit. We need to make them slowly approach hell whilst being filled with helplessness and despair." "Wouldn't that be more interesting than directly destroying them?" said a great elder. The young Star Lord thought about it carefully. Gnawing away at the Tian Yuan clan such that Chen could only watch on powerlessly was indeed more interesting than directly destroying them, so he directly agreed to the great elder's suggestion. 3 days later, as the current emperor of the Pingtian Empire, Mo Xingfeng, managed the affairs of the empire from his study, one of his personal guards hurried in from outside. He dropped to one knee and said, "Your Majesty, we've just received urgent news that the eastern boundary has suddenly been invaded. The walls of the fortress have fallen, and the generals have fallen in battle as well. Our armies have lost several 100,000 people, and they're in a state of disarray right now." "What?" The emperor of the Pingtian Empire's face changed. The report in his hands fell onto the table as he leapt to his feet. He said sternly, "Who is it that has attacked our Pingtian Empire?" "Your Majesty, according to the reports, it's an organization that has never appeared on our cloud plane. Their banners bear 9 brilliant stars." "9 brilliant stars?" Mo Xingfeng frowned. He thought through all the organizations on the cloud plane, but none of them used stars on their banners. "Report." At this moment, another guard hurried in. He dropped to one knee and said, "Your Majesty, the Western Fortress has brought urgent news. An unknown army has attacked our western boundary. The boundary has given way, and the army stationed there has fallen in battle. Report." "Your Majesty, the southern fortress has suddenly been attacked. The fortress has fallen, and we've lost 1 million troops. In a short span of time, the eastern, western, and southern boundaries of the Pingtian Empire were all attacked. All the fortresses fell. The Pingtian Empire that basically no one dared to offend in the past due to the Tian Yuan clan's connection with the heavenly palace of Bisheng suddenly faced an unprecedented threat." Mo Xingfeng became extremely stern. The fortresses of the Pingtian Empire were extremely sturdy. They were reinforced with various formations and defensive equipment. Even against the strongest army on the cloud plain, they would be able to stave them off for 10 days. Yet now, the 3 fortresses had fallen to attacks in such a short amount of time. This could only be achieved if powerful primordial realm experts personally took action. The matter was so severe that it had already gone beyond what the Pingtian Empire could handle alone. "Activate the short-range teleportation formation. I need to pay a visit to the Tian Yuan clan immediately." Mo Ling hurried out of the study sternly. He made his way to the Dong'an province as quickly as he could. The large discussion hall of the Tian Yuan clan was currently full. All the members of the upper echelon and a few protectors were gathered there. The dragon-robed Mo Xingfeng had already taken a seat there calmly. All of them were extremely stern. None of them uttered a word, making the atmosphere rather heavy. They were all waiting for someone, the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan, Chen. "I already know about it." At this moment, a calm voice suddenly rang out in the quiet discussion hall. The space on the empty patriarch's throne suddenly twisted slightly, and Chen appeared out of nowhere. He glanced past everyone below. He was extremely calm. "I originally thought they would directly attack our Tian Yuan clan, but I never thought they would target the Pingtian Empire." Chen was calm and unflustered. The powerful senses of his soul had already enveloped the entire empire. He already knew about the situation in the east, south, and west completely. Only the northern boundary remained fine, as it bordered the Heavenly Moon Empire. Chapter 2568, Jian Chen's Counterattack, Patriarch. May I ask who the invading organization is? They're clearly declaring war on us. They've taken 3 of our fortresses and millions of soldiers have fallen in battle, Mo Xingfeng said in great pain. The death of millions of soldiers was an extremely heavy loss for the Ping-Tian Empire. It would directly affect the overall strength of their empire. After all, the Ping-Tian Empire had only progressed from a divine kingdom to an empire recently. It was impossible for them to rival those ancient empires that had existed for hundreds of thousands of years or even millions of years. As a matter of fact, over 70% of the troops in the entire empire were stationed at the 4 fortresses. Now that they had lost 3 of them, the Ping-Tian Empire immediately suffered great losses. Shiyu, who handled the day-to-day affairs of the Tian Yuan clan, had a frigid expression as well. She said coldly, in order to build the 3 fortresses, our Tian Yuan clan used up a tremendous amount of resources. Now that the 3 fortresses have been destroyed, the losses are extravagant. There's also the several million soldiers who have fallen in battle. This debt can only be settled with blood. Just a few months ago, I stationed 1,000 of my brothers from the Sword God army at the eastern fortress so that they could go out for training whenever they wished. Now, they're all dead as well. We can't just let this be, Nubis added coldly from his seat. His voice was filled with killing intent. The Sword God army was the army of the Tian Yuan clan composed of their greatest elites. There were only 10,000 of them, and they were all godhood cultivators. Now that they had lost a tenth all of a sudden, Nubis felt pained. Obviously, we have to get them to pay this debt with blood. Even if they are the 4 Symbols Alliance, I'll make them regret this. Jian Chen sat on the Patriarch's throne as he stared right at the 4 Symbols Alliance frigidly. His gaze seemed to be able to pierce through space and see where the 4 Symbols Alliance stood. However, when the upper echelon of the Tian Yuan clan heard him mention the 4 Symbols Alliance, all of their expressions changed. Even the expressions of a few people who had spoken out righteously about revenge became warped. It's actually the 4 Symbols Alliance. Nubis grinded his teeth. His face was utterly sunken. The 4 Symbols Alliance is far too shameless. When Ming Dong was here, they were as obedient as a dog, following along with everything. They would do whatever we told them to, even saying that they were eternal friends of our Tian Yuan clan. And now, as soon as Ming Dong left, they've directly turned against us, attacking our Ping-Tian Empire. Patriarch, what should we do now? Shiyu asked. Their opponent was the 4 Symbols Alliance, one of the rulers of the Cloud Plain. Shiyu had no idea what to do. She understood the power of the Tian Yuan clan extremely well. Without Ming Dong, it was impossible for them to repel the 4 Symbols Alliance. Do exactly what I just said. We'll settle this debt with blood. Senior Su. Jian Chen said coldly before calling for Su Ran. His voice directly passed through the various formations, ringing out where Su Ran cultivated. In the next moment, Su Ran appeared within the discussion hall. She said nothing. With her cultivation as a chaotic prime, there was not a lot that could be hidden from her. She understood the current situation even better than Jian Chen. As a matter of fact, she knew that the 3 fortresses had been instantaneously destroyed by 3 chaotic primes. The fortresses of the Ping-Tian Empire were extremely tough, reinforced by various powerful formations. It was impossible for God Kings to get through them, and they could last a few days against even infinite primes. Only chaotic primes could destroy them immediately. Senior Su, please come with me to go kill, Jian Chen said to Su Ran. Su Ran nodded. There are a total of 5 chaotic primes. 3 of them are at the 5th heavenly layer and 2 are at the 4th. There's also another 16 infinite primes. Currently, 3 chaotic primes are at the eastern fortress, one's at the southern, and one's at the western. They've split up their armies and infinite primes, approaching the imperial capital of the Ping-Tian Empire from 3 directions. Su Ran paused when she reached there. She continued, the chaotic prime at the southern fortress is the weakest, at the 4th heavenly layer. Who do you want to kill first? They've sent 5 chaotic primes all of a sudden. The Four Symbols Alliance sure takes us seriously. Chen sneered. He said coldly, naturally, we kill the weakest one first. Let's use one of their chaotic primes to remember the brave souls of all our soldiers that have fallen in battle first. Patriarch, this matter is very important. You must not be reckless. A skinny old man stood up and clasped his fist towards Chen sternly. He was Protector Qi. He possessed the same cultivation as Protector Shui. They were both 7th Heavenly Layer Infinite Primes. Out of all the protectors of the Tian Yuan clan, only he and Protector Shui were late Infinite Primes. Protector Qi explained in a hurry when he saw Chen look over, Patriarch, the Four Symbols Alliance is one of the rulers of the Cloud Plane. They're extremely powerful. Aside from chaotic primes, they even have grand primes. I think it would be best if we don't come into conflict with the Four Symbols Alliance. After all, young Master Ming isn't present. Once we aggravate them and they send grand primes, the consequences will be even more severe. Protector Qi's eyes were clearly filled with some fear. This was fear towards the Four Symbols Alliance. Grand Prime. A gleam of killing intent flashed through Chen's eyes. He said coldly, so what if they have grand primes? If they really dare to do anything, I'll make them lose a grand prime or two. Chen's words left Protector Qi tongue-tied. Chen and Su Ran left the discussion hall. However, they did not leave the Tian Yuan clan. Instead, they arrived in a forbidden ground of the Tian Yuan clan. The forbidden ground was protected by layers of formations, enough to block out senses of the soul. Senior Su, please have a look at where the 4th Heavenly Layer Chaotic Prime is near the southern fortress. Chen took out a detailed map of the Pingtian Empire and spread it out before Su Ran. Although he could envelope the entire empire with the senses of his soul, and he found many chaotic primes, accurately locating them still required Su Ran's help. Su Ran immediately pointed at the map, marking out where the 4th Heavenly Layer Chaotic Prime was. Chen remembered the location before stowing the map away. He said sternly, Senior Su, I'll use the laws of space to teleport there directly. Once we're there, we'll immediately unleash our full strength to kill one of them as quickly as possible. We have to make them pay for their actions. We only have 15 seconds. After those 15 seconds, the 4 other chaotic primes will arrive. Although I can keep the 5 of them suppressed, it's very difficult for me to kill them. If it gets drawn out for too long, the Four Symbols Alliance can send reinforcements at any time. As a result, we need to kill the person within 15 seconds. However, without the 9 Tribulations Incineration Formation, it's almost impossible for me to kill a 4th Heavenly Layer Chaotic Prime in such a short amount of time. I'll need you to use the secret technique you used last time, said Su Ran. No problem, Chen agreed. As long as he could kill a chaotic prime, did using a strand of profound sword chi matter? Chapter 2569, Killing a Chaotic Prime, 1, Senior Su, let's go, Chen called out. His eyes shone brightly. At that moment, he unleashed the limits of his laws of space. Chen had made up his mind about killing the chaotic prime, so he definitely could not create any pulse in space when he teleported over with the laws of space, nor could he allow the chaotic prime to notice them. As a result, he needed to devote even more effort towards using the laws of space. In the next moment, Chen and Su Ran suddenly vanished. They vanished extremely suddenly, without any signs at all. There was not even a pulse in space. The majestic wall of the fortress on the southern boundary of the Pingtian Empire had been completely destroyed. The various formations cast down on the walls had all been ruined as well. There were no signs of battle on the fortress walls because the fortress had been destroyed in a single strike by a chaotic prime with his overwhelming strength. The corpses of soldiers were strewn about the fortress. There were hundreds of thousands of them. Many of them were missing limbs and covered with vicious wounds. Clearly, they had been slain in an open battle. An army was stationed nearby. There were not a lot of them, only numbering several tens of thousands. They were all godhood cultivators. They were an army from the Four Symbols Alliance. At this moment, the army had finished tidying up themselves. They slowly advanced towards the depths of the Pingtian Empire. Great Elder, there's something that I don't understand. Since we're attacking the Pingtian Empire, we can just attack their imperial capital. With the strength of our Four Symbols Alliance, destroying the Pingtian Empire would only take a flick of a finger. Why must we be so slow? 6 figures stood in the ruins of the fortress. They varied in age, but their presences were extremely powerful. They had all reached the primordial realm. One of them stood at the front with the 5 others behind him. The leader was a chaotic prime great elder of the Four Symbols Alliance. His name was Jian. The person who asked the question was an infinite prime behind Jian. The young Star Lord's presence had not been made public yet, so not a lot of people knew about him. You will understand this all in the future. Don't ask about it now, the great elder, Jian, said indifferently. He glanced past the corpses detachedly with his aged eyes. Jian did not take the lives of these ordinary soldiers seriously. He only treated them as ants. Even the Tian Yuan clan was just a small clan in his eyes. What he truly feared was Ming Dong, who had the backing of the heavenly palace of Bisheng. Let's gnaw away at the Pingtian Empire for now. The Tian Yuan clan won't be able to exist for much longer, Jian said slowly. He already understood that the Four Symbols Alliance would not be able to avoid offending the heavenly palace of Bisheng if they wanted to ally themselves with the young Star Lord. However, what put him at ease was that the young Star Lord's background was much more powerful than the Tian Yuan clans as it seemed right now. After all, the young Star Lord had a Grand Exalt on his side, while the heavenly palace of Bisheng completely relied on their First Majesty. Your Four Symbols Alliance probably doesn't have the ability to destroy my Tian Yuan clan. At this moment, a cold snort rang out from behind Jian. Basically the moment the voice sounded out, a great sense of danger overwhelmed Jian. Jian's expression changed drastically. With a single thought, a set of medium-quality god artifact armor immediately covered him completely. It shone with dazzling light, erupting with powerful energy that formed an almost indestructible barrier around him. At almost the same as Jian donned his armor, an old, skinny hand appeared. It possessed devastating power, and when it came in contact with the armor, the protective barrier immediately shattered. The hand continued onwards without slowing down at all. It pierced through the various layers of defense conjured by the armor before landing on it gently. The destructive energy within the hand erupted completely at that moment. Bang! Immediately, there was a thunderous rumble, and Jian, a 4th heavenly layer chaotic prime, shot off like a broken kite. A deep handprint appeared on his medium-quality god artifact. It's you? Jian immediately paled and coughed up blood. With a single glance, he saw Su Ran, who had attacked him. He was shocked. He knew the Tian Yuan clan had a 5th heavenly layer chaotic prime, but he had never thought the old woman would possess such shocking strength. Despite the protection of a medium-quality god artifact, she still managed to injure him in a single attack. Su Ran was completely calm. She said nothing at all. She immediately pursued him, unleashing her full strength to launch a barrage of fierce attacks. She knew she only had 15 seconds. Although she possessed an absolute advantage in terms of strength, killing a 4th heavenly layer chaotic prime in just 15 seconds was a great challenge for her. After all, defeating and killing were 2 completely different concepts. At the same time, 3 of the 5 great elders accompanied the young Star Lord at the Eastern Fortress. They followed him closely, protecting his safety. The 3 of them were the most powerful great elders of the 5. They were all of the 5th heavenly layer, which was the same level as Su Ran. The chaotic prime from the Tian Yuan clan has moved. The 3 chaotic primes beside the young Star Lord sensed Su Ran basically at the moment she struck out. The old woman's a 5th heavenly layer chaotic prime, while Jian's at the 4th heavenly layer. Although he has only reached the 4th heavenly layer recently, he should be able to keep the old woman busy for a while. Let's still send someone over. After all, there's still a heavenly layer's worth of difference. Jian is still not the old woman's opponent, the three chaotic primes smiled at ease. They did not take the matter too seriously. After all, their opponent was only a fifth heavenly layer chaotic prime, while there was the three of them here. They only needed to send a single one of them to reduce the old woman's efforts to nothing, perhaps even repelling her and making her flee desperately. However, in the next moment, their expressions changed. Their eyes narrowed, and they became shocked. They were filled with disbelief. How? Her strength, oh no, how is that old woman so powerful? She heavily injured Jian with a single palm strike, even damaging the medium-quality god artifact. I'll stay here to protect the young Star Lord. The two of you go immediately. The old woman's far too powerful. Jian is in danger. Also get Biyao on the west side to go provide help as well. Chapter 2570, Killing a Chaotic Prime. 2 of the three chaotic primes at the eastern fortress immediately hurried off to the southern fortress. Chaotic primes moved extremely quickly, and they were fast enough to cover a tremendous distance with each step. Even if they wanted to cross an entire plane, it would not take them long. However, the Tian Empire was no longer the tiny divine kingdom of the past. After expanding their territory, even them, fifth heavenly layer chaotic primes, needed a few seconds to go from the eastern fortress to the southern one. Jian, stay alive. The chaotic prime from the western called out as he hurried over to the southern fortress as well. Two fifth heavenly layer chaotic primes and a fourth heavenly layer chaotic prime rushed over as quickly as they could to provide support. At the southern fortress, Xuandau's battle against Jian had become completely one-sided. Even though their cultivation only differed by a single heavenly layer, Jian was unable to fight back at all. 5 seconds had passed since their battle began. Even though this was an extremely short amount of time, every single strike from chaotic primes was devastating. Terrifying storms of energy wreaked havoc in the surroundings, ripping open space and revealing pitch-black cracks. The ground below either sank from the battle, were reduced to bottomless holes, or became riddled with chasms from the blades of energy. Jian constantly coughed up blood. His face was sheet white, and he had become haggard. The medium-quality god artifact armor on him was riddled with deep handprints. The powerful god artifact had warped in shape and cracks had even appeared. The god artifact was damaged. Its defenses were no longer as great as when it was in perfect condition. By the 9th second, an even more vicious energy suddenly erupted, filled with killing intent. Xuan had brought her hands together, separating them before pressing them together again. She created a dazzling strand of sword chi. As soon as the sword chi appeared, space distorted, and the surroundings shook. Countless tiny spatial cracks filled the surroundings of the sword chi. This was clearly a powerful secret technique, something extremely terrifying. The tremendous pressure struck fear deep into Jian's heart, causing him to start trembling from the bottom of his heart. He wanted to dodge, but he could no longer do that. Swish! The sword chi shot through the air with devastating power, striking Jian mercilessly. It emitted a thunderous boom. Crack! Immediately, the god artifact armor on Jian finally gave in to the damage and shattered. It was reduced to a sky full of fragments, shooting out in all directions. Xuan's sword chi did not run out of power after destroying Jian's armor. It became extremely dim, continuing onwards and passing through Jian's abdomen. It left behind a fist-sized hole. Jian was knocked away like a broken kite. He struggled to stabilize himself. However, he was decisive. He directly punched the space behind him, collapsing it in attempt to flee into a spatial crack. Xuan had already been prepared for his flight. With a flash, she arrived at the entrance to the spatial crack even faster than Jian, sending him flying with a palm strike. Jian glanced at Xuan in complete fear. She was just too powerful, possessing battle prowess far beyond her current level of cultivation. He knew that he had to leave, or he would probably suffer. He could not last very long before a prodigy like her. With a flip of his hand, Jian took out a talisman from his space ring as quickly as he could. It was a cosmic movement talisman, an extremely precious treasure. Even with his strength and status, he had only obtained it through luck. It was something that could save his life when he faced a critical moment. However, just when Jian wanted to activate the Cosmos movement talisman, an extremely powerful strand of sword chi suddenly appeared. It was only the size of a finger, but it shone with light that could make the world pale. It shot into Jian's head with lightning speed. Jian immediately grunted as his bloody body suddenly stiffened. The strand of sword chi directly attacked his soul such that he was unable to defend against it. It made him dizzy, so he failed to activate the cosmic movement talisman in his hand immediately. That moment determined his fate. Xuan arrived silently and struck him with a palm strike. The terrifying energy within it directly reduced Jian to dust. Jian's soul dispersed immediately. Jian. At the same time, a sorrowful and furious roar rang out from the horizon. The 5th heavenly layer chaotic primes had already arrived, faster than what they had estimated. They had used just 12 seconds to hurry over from the eastern fortress. Unfortunately, they were still late. They could only watch as Jian died before them. Ah! The 5th heavenly layer chaotic primes bellowed out. Without saying anything else, they both struck out, attacking Xuan furiously. With just the two of you, it's futile. Xuan was cold. She did not take the two of them seriously at all. She erupted with a terrifying pressure and engaged in a great battle against them. She fought against two experts of the same level of cultivation as her simultaneously, but she managed to overwhelm them from the very first clash. They were not Xuan's opponent even when they worked together. Avenge brother Jian. Very soon, Biyao hurried over from the western fortress as well. His eyes were bloodshot, and he entered the battle as well. However, the entry of a 4th heavenly layer chaotic prime was still not enough to change the situation. Xuan completely overwhelmed the three of them. At the same time, she brought her hands together and used a secret technique again. She sent out a powerful strand of sword chi, heavily injuring the 4th heavenly layer chaotic prime, Biyao, with a single strike. The expressions of the three great elders all changed when they witnessed that. They all shivered. Xuan was far more powerful than they had imagined her to be. Even when the three of them worked together, they did not gain any advantage. Young Star Lord, the situation at the southern fortress is urgent. I need to reinforce them immediately, so please enter my divine hall. Apologies. The last chaotic prime at the eastern fortress stowed the young Star Lord into his divine hall before rushing off to the south as well. Very soon, the four of them gathered together. They now had 3 5th heavenly layer chaotic primes and a 4th heavenly layer chaotic prime. They faced Xuan together, fighting a devastating battle in the southern fortress of the Tian Empire. However, even when the four of them worked together, they were still only able to protect themselves. Xuan overwhelmed them even though she was one against the four of them. God damn it, where did this old woman come from? How is she so powerful? What kind of impressive legacy did this old woman obtain? She's so terrifying. Even when the four of us work together, we can't match her. The four great elders of the Four Symbols Alliance communicated with one another secretly. They were all shocked, and the shock they felt increased as they fought. In the end, they were shivering in fear. The white-robed, sage-like Lord of the Heavens Link Peak stood atop the Heavens Link Peak in the central region of the Cloud Plain. He stared deeply in the direction of the southern region. What is happening in the southern region? Why are there such powerful pulses of energy? Even the formation that can block senses of the soul has been activated. What's the Four Symbols Alliance doing? The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak murmured softly as he peered into the heavenly secrets. A while later, he suddenly frowned. He immediately became extremely stern. What's happening in the southern region actually relates to the fate of our righteous alliance. Immediately send people to infiltrate the southern region. Afterwards, the Peak Lord suddenly vanished. He also sent messages to the other people in charge of the righteous alliance, calling for an emergency meeting. Chapter 2571, The Tian Yuan Clan's Counterattack. 1. All the scouts of the Righteous Alliance set off with the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak's personal order, infiltrating the southern region through various means. Although the Four Symbols Alliance had basically sealed up the entire southern region to prevent the entry of the Righteous Alliance, they were unable to achieve airtight security. Most of the scouts were able to enter through various regions and methods. Even the scouts that had infiltrated the southern region already became active again. Most of them investigated the most recent news in the southern region, relaying it all to the Righteous Alliance. At the same time, the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak gathered together with the other decision-makers of the Righteous Alliance within a divine hall. Many of them were stern. We can't peer into anything. The heavenly secrets have fallen into disorder. Someone is hiding what is happening in the southern region on purpose. Some of the decision-makers shook their heads. All of them tried peering and understanding something. Unfortunately, none of them found anything aside from the Lord of Heaven's Link Peak. Its gentle breeze. Within the Four Symbols Alliance, he's the most skilled at peering into things. And I can sense his presence. He's purposefully obscuring it, said the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak. Even with his ability, he was only able to see a sliver of what was happening under the breeze cloud ancestors' cover. At this moment, the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak's expression changed. A smear of surprise appeared in his eyes. I've just received the news that a mysterious organization has declared war against the Tian Yuan clan. This organization's banner is 9 stars. With that, the Lord of Heaven's Link Peak paused. He glanced past the people seated there and continued, surprisingly, basically everyone in the organization comes from the Four Symbols Alliance. With that, the people present frowned. Both the Righteous Alliance and the Four Symbols Alliance knew who was backing up the Tian Yuan clan. It was the heavenly palace of Bisheng that stood at the peak of the Saints' world. Now that the Four Symbols Alliance had declared war against the Tian Yuan clan despite the risk of offending the heavenly palace of Bisheng, they all understood that this matter was probably far more complicated than it seemed. I suspect that the Four Symbols Alliance probably has something that they can rely on, which is why they don't fear the heavenly palace of Bisheng. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak voiced his guess. If that's true, our Righteous Alliance will be in danger. Look into it. Look into it with everything that we have. We have to get to the bottom of what's happening in the southern region. The 5 chaotic primes engaged in an extremely intense battle in the southern region of the Cloud Plain. Xuan possessed an absolute advantage against them, forcing the 4 great elders into retreat. They gradually departed from the Pingtian Empire. The 4 great elders of the Four Symbols Alliance were troubled. Xuan was just too powerful. They knew that if they kept fighting, they would be defeated sooner or later. Senior Su, allow me to help you kill one of them. Chen chased over from behind. He slashed open the surging ripples of energy and said to Xuan. He still had 3 strands of profound sword chi remaining. He was ready to use a second or even a third strand at any time now. The actions of the Four Symbols Alliance had completely infuriated him. If it were possible, he was tempted to kill all 4 chaotic primes then and there. The 4 great elders of the Four Symbols Alliance all heard Chen's secret message. They turned green. They had all witnessed how Jian had died with the senses of their souls. Originally, Jian would have been able to last until they arrived with his strength, but in the end, he died to Xuan's hands because of a strand of sword chi from Chen. As a result, all of them felt fear towards Chen's profound sword chi. They obviously would not be like this if it were some other time. It was just that they were locked in combat with a powerful enemy right now. Any negligence could claim their lives. The senses of the souls from those from the Four Symbols Alliance have arrived. We can't kill them, Xuan responded rather powerlessly. Return. At the same time, the gentle breeze ancestor's voice rang out in the heads of the 4 great elders. The 4 great elders looked at one another before making up their minds and pulling out together. They traveled away like they were running away, vanishing into the horizon in an instant. Xuan did not pursue them. She stared in their direction sternly. Chen snorted coldly. He held the 9-star sword of heavenly ways and suddenly vanished. He returned to the ruins of the southern fortress with the laws of space. There were still a few soldiers who had been scattered by the shockwaves, as well as some infinite primes in horrible shape. They were all members of the Four Symbols Alliance. Chen surged with killing intent. Like a god of slaughter, he charged into the crowd with the 9-star sword of heavenly ways and started a massacre. Sword chi shone brightly as he killed an infinite prime with a single strike. Run! Run! Immediately, the armies of the Four Symbols Alliance began to flee crazily. Even in the beginning, there were only several tens of thousands of them at the southern fortress. They lost a few people to the shockwaves of energy from the battle between the chaotic primes, but most of them still remained. They scattered and fled for their lives. You killed millions of soldiers, so how can you just escape? Chen snorted coldly. His gaze was extremely frigid. With a single thought, the will of the ultimate way of the sword appeared, enveloping a region of 100,000 kilometers in an instant. At that moment, he seemed to have become the ruler of that range. His will replaced the laws of the world, and he only needed a thought to destroy everything. Spurt. 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 Sput. Immediately, there were a series of explosions, and all the soldiers at Godhood within the range exploded. They were reduced to a bloody mist, dyeing the sky red with blood. Only the infinite primes remained fine. With just a thought, Chen killed several tens of thousands of people. It was extremely shocking. What's happening? The infinite primes who remained witnessed this, and all of them paled in fright. They had never seen or heard of something so strange. What powerful sword intent! How is the way of the sword Chen has comprehended so powerful? This isn't the regular way of the sword. The 5 peak experts in the headquarters of the Four Symbols Alliance witnessed this with the senses of their soul, and they all stood up in surprise. The 5 peak experts did not interfere to save them. They had already begun treating lives as nothing since long ago. Losing a few Godhood soldiers would not raise their attention at all. Even if a few infinite primes died, it would not be able to shake up their status. Chen extended a finger, and the rain of blood in the sky immediately gathered together, condensing into a huge sword. It gave off a heavy smell of metal, and powerful energy was hidden within. Chen suddenly looked at one of the fleeing infinite primes and pointed at him. Swish! The blood-red sword immediately shot out. With the support of Chen's ultimate way of the sword, it pierced through space with a resplendent glow, cutting the infinite prime in half and claiming his life. By now, the 3 remaining infinite primes had completely vanished. It was no longer possible to find them with the naked eye. Chen's killing intent did not decrease at all. He silently vanished. When he appeared again, he was several million kilometers away. He happened to be in the way of an infinite prime. His laws of space had already reached the primordial realm. Was there anything faster than the laws of space for traveling? Chapter 2572, The Tian Yuan Clan's Counterattack, 2. Although his teleportation range was limited, it was enough to cover the entire Ping Tian Empire. As soon as the fleeing infinite primes saw Chen suddenly appear, his face changed. However, before he could respond, Chen swung his 9-star sword of heavenly ways and killed him on the spot. After that, he stowed the corpse away. Afterwards, Chen repeated this process. He used the laws of space again and again, killing the infinite primes from the southern fortress in just a few seconds. He did not stop at that. He returned to the Tian Yuan clan with the laws of space. Greetings, Patriarch. The armies had already gathered together in the Tian Yuan clan. Several tens of thousands of cultivators stood in an orderly manner in the center of a square. All the primordial realm protectors were present as well. Even the sword god army that the Tian Yuan clan nurtured carefully was present. This was the entire force of the Tian Yuan clan. When Jian left, he had already ordered all the high-ranking members to gather everyone. When he returned, the entire Tian Yuan clan was prepared. Jian Chen hovered in the sky, and with a wave of his hand, a blue divine hall appeared out of nowhere. He had obtained this divine hall from the Gloomwater sect. It was the Water Cloud Hall. Everyone, enter the divine hall immediately. Jian Chen called out coldly. At the same time, the doors to the divine hall swung open. Immediately, all the people gathered below rose up and vanished into the Water Cloud Hall like a flood. They moved extremely quickly. In just a few seconds, the several tens of thousands of cultivators had all entered the Water Cloud Hall. The divine hall shrank to the size of a fist at that moment as well. Jian Chen grabbed the Water Cloud Hall and suddenly vanished. He had departed from the Dong'an province using the laws of space. A group of armored soldiers currently carried a banner with 9 stars as they retreated towards the headquarters of the Four Symbols Alliance from the western fortress of the Tian Empire. There were not a lot of them, only several tens of thousands. However, most of them were elites. Under the lead of a few infinite primes, they flew through the air in a spectacular manner. They did not retreat quickly. In particular, the infinite primes at the front even conversed with one another secretly. Aren't we going to attack the Tian Empire? We just started fighting, so why did the Great Elders order us to retreat? The Tian Yuan clan still has a chaotic prime. Before the chaotic prime is killed, it'll be very difficult to take down the Tian Empire. The Great Elders probably want us to retreat so that we can avoid the shockwaves from the battle between chaotic primes. They don't want us to get dragged in needlessly. I wonder what the situation with the southern fortress is like. The energy storm there is just too powerful, so we can't approach it at all with the senses of our souls. We can't check the situation there at all. Don't worry. We have 5 Great Elders with us. We possess an absolute advantage. The chaotic prime of the Tian Yuan clan is dead for sure. Right now, we need to lead our soldiers far away to avoid the storm of energy from the battle between chaotic primes. Even we have to maintain our distance from a battle between such experts, let alone these godhood cultivators. The infinite primes were in no hurry. They had only received an order for retreat and had no clue how the battle between the chaotic primes was going. They did not know that out of the 5 Great Elders that they depended on the most, one of them was already dead, and the rest had fled. At this moment, the space before them suddenly twisted. The power of space surged, and Jian Chen silently appeared, blocking their paths. The infinite primes were surprised as they stared at Jian Chen, who had suddenly appeared. However, as they were stunned, a huge divine hall appeared. The doors swung open, and the cultivators of the Tian Yuan clan surged out like a flood. At the front were the infinite prime protectors of the Tian Yuan clan. Protector Shuang and Protector Qi, the 2 late infinite primes, happened to be among them as well. Kill them all. Leave none alive. Jian Chen ordered coldly. His eyes were frigid, and they held no sympathy. The soldiers stationed at the western fortress of the Tian Empire had all died to their hands. As a result, he would not show any mercy to the godhood soldiers or the infinite primes. Immediately, an intense battle erupted. Rumbles from the collision of energy constantly rang out, filling the surroundings with violent shockwaves. Jian Chen did not take part in the battle here. He left behind half of the soldiers and 8 infinite primes before leaving with the Water Cloud Hall. There were no particularly powerful experts among the people who attacked the western fortress. There were only 6 infinite primes, and the strongest was only at the 5th heavenly layer. Most of them were early infinite primes. There were 2 7th heavenly layer infinite primes out of the 8 that the Tian Yuan clan had brought. That was enough to completely crush them and even have an infinite prime or 2 spare to fight against the godhood soldiers. As a result, the Tian Yuan clan possessed the complete upper hand against the enemies near the western fortress. Jian Chen carried the other people from the Tian Yuan clan in the Water Cloud Hall, crossing through the entire Tian Empire with the laws of space. He blocked the paths of the final army from the Four Symbols Alliance in the east. He had the laws of space. Even though his comprehension of laws of space remained at early infinite prime, he was no longer any slower than most chaotic primes. As a matter of fact, he even surpassed some of them in speed. As a result, the people of the Four Symbols Alliance were unable to avoid his pursuit. The patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan. The middle-aged man at the very front of the army that had attacked the eastern fortress suddenly saw Chen appear. He could not help but cry out. For some reason, he abruptly felt an ill omen. The middle-aged man was a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime, the strongest out of all the infinite primes assigned to the young Star Lord. He had already realized that the battle between the chaotic primes in the southern fortress had ended with the senses of his soul. However, due to the violent storm of energy, he was unable to approach the region with the senses of the soul, so he had no idea about the outcome. Now that he saw Chen had come alone to stop them, his heart sank. Basically at the same time, he expanded the senses of his soul and enveloped the 3 other fortresses of the Ping-Tian Empire. In the next moment, his face changed drastically. Before, he had always been concentrating on where the chaotic primes fought, so he had not been paying attention to the situation of the western and southern fortresses. Now that he checked on them, he immediately paled in fright. All the soldiers from the southern fortress are dead. The middle-aged man was stunned. He was in a state of disbelief. However, in the next moment, he suddenly thought of something and immediately fled into the distance. Run! Everyone run! Scatter and run! The middle-aged man called out. Even though he was a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime, he had no interest in fighting. The army that attacked the southern fortress was all dead, while the army that attacked the western fortress was facing a bitter battle right now. The 5 great elders had completely vanished after ordering a retreat. He knew what all this meant. Chapter 2573, The Tian Yuan Clan's Counterattack, 3. The middle-aged man's actions stunned the infinite primes behind him. They were rather confused. Afterwards, they expanded the senses of their souls into the surroundings as well. Immediately, they witnessed the situation of the southern and western fortresses. They were all shocked. Impossible. The infinite primes who had attacked the eastern fortress were all shocked. Without any hesitation, they scattered and fled as quickly as they could. This army from the Four Symbols Alliance began to flee desperately before the battle even begun. Kill them all. Leave none alive. Chen coldly ordered. The remaining half of all the cultivators from the Tian Yuan clan surged out from the Water Cloud Hall, hunting down the cultivators from the Four Symbols Alliance in the surroundings. Heya joined in as well. Under Chen's orders, he did not go looking for primordial realm experts. Instead, he was responsible for God Kings. The army that had attacked the eastern fortress had more God Kings than the Tian Yuan clan, so Chen used Heya to make up for this difference. He planned on killing the infinite primes personally. Although he possessed the ultimate way of the sword and could replace the world with his will, killing everything within the range of 100,000 kilometers, he did not use it against these godhood cultivators of the Four Symbols Alliance. He planned on using this as an opportunity to properly train the cultivators of the Tian Yuan clan. The Water Cloud Hall continued to hover above the battlefield, but Chen had already vanished. He traveled 10 million kilometers away with the laws of space, stopping the 9th heavenly layer infinite prime who had fled first. His 9-star sword of heavenly ways shone with resplendent light as 9 illusionary stars appeared. Shining with starlight, he engaged in an intense battle against the 9th heavenly layer infinite prime. Chen's presence surged as sword chi rampaged through the surroundings. He used his full strength, and every single strand of sword chi was blinding. He was locked in an intense fight against the infinite prime. At the same time, he expanded the will of his ultimate way of the sword, enveloping a range of 100,000 kilometers. The other infinite primes were all within this range. Even though they moved very quickly, it had only been a few seconds since they started fleeing. However, at this moment, the expressions of the fleeing infinite primes all changed. In the next moment, they saw the space around them tremble, and a wall of invisible sword chi silently appeared, engulfing them with cold killing intent. The infinite primes all tried to defend, but since it had happened all of a sudden, a few strands of sword chi broke through their defenses and left behind various wounds on them. Who is it? Who launched a sneak attack against us? The Infinite Primes all became cautious. Even though the sword chi around them was not powerful, it was silent, as if it had appeared out of nowhere. They dared not be careless. However, no matter how they searched, they were unable to find where the attacks came from. Suddenly, their faces changed. At that moment, they felt their surrounding space seemingly turn into a world of sword chi. The origin energy, vegetation, and pebbles littered across the ground actually erupted with sword chi. They flew in from everywhere towards them. At that moment, they even had the impression that everything in the world had become sharp swords. Where they stood had become a domain where only sword chi existed. Endless sword chi, whether in the form of anything or from nothing, bombarded them from all directions. The Infinite Primes of the Four Symbols Alliance were powerless. They used their various methods to deal with the barrage of attacks from all directions as they continued to flee into the distance. Fortunately, the sword chi did not pose much of a threat to the Infinite Primes. It was very difficult to harm their lives while they utilized their full defense. However, it was still interference. It made them slow down dramatically. To another side, Chen frowned more and more as he fought the 9th Heavenly Layer Infinite Prime. His opponent was extraordinary, having reached the peak of the 9th Heavenly Layer. Although Chen could achieve victory with his current strength coupled with the laws of space, it was very difficult for him to end the battle quickly. If this fight dragged out for too long, he might not be able to kill the other fleeing Infinite Primes. I can only do this if I want to end the battle quickly. The light in Chen's eyes flickered. He immediately made up his mind, and a strand of profound sword chi appeared. It shone with illuminating light and stabbed into his opponent's forehead instantly. Arg! Immediately, piercing pain appeared in the Infinite Prime's soul, and he could not help but wail out. He clutched his head as blood flowed from all his facial openings. He directly fell from the sky. If Chen's profound sword chi was used against a 4th Heavenly Layer chaotic prime, it could probably only stun them temporarily. However, against Infinite Primes, even those at the 9th Heavenly Layer, it could deal life-threatening damage. Swish! With a flash, Chen's 9-star sword of heavenly ways directly plunged into the middle-aged man's forehead, killing him off immediately. He did not stop after that. He stowed the corpse away with a wave of his hand before leaving with the laws of space. In just a split second, Chen crossed several tens of thousand kilometers. He stopped a second Infinite Prime in his tracks and struck out with lightning speed. At the same time, the Gentle Breeze ancestor, Qinghu, Gongji, Changfeng Yun, and Wulu gathered together in the headquarters of the Four Symbols Alliance. They all frowned. Jian is already dead. He's a peak 9th Heavenly Layer Infinite Prime, only a step away from becoming a chaotic prime. If he had time, he would definitely be able to break through within a century. What a pity, said Zhenghu with a sigh of pity. A few Infinite Primes still remain. With the strength that Chen has displayed and his ability to pursue with the laws of space, none of these Infinite Primes will be able to escape. Gentle Breeze, do we interfere? Gong Ji asked. The Gentle Breeze ancestor shook his head and sighed gently. We definitely cannot. Right now, their battle is only happening because of the young Star Lord's grievances with the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan. As the young Star Lord's guards, they all must listen to the young Star Lord. What they do has nothing to do with our Four Symbols Alliance. We need to do our best to rope in the young Star Lord, but we can't afford to offend the heavenly palace of Bisheng either. We have to remain uninvolved with the battle between the young Star Lord and the Tian Yuan clan. Chapter 2574. Heavy Casualties. The Four Symbols Alliance did not interfere with the battle. They completely detached themselves from it. The so-called guards that the Four Symbols Alliance assigned to the young Star Lord were immediately forced into a retreat without any support. They suffered injuries and casualties. The Infinite Primes who fled from the eastern fortress of the Pingtian Empire were like a joke before Chen's laws of space. They were hunted down one by one, dying to Chen's sword. Although Primordial Realm experts were very difficult to kill due to their various methods of escape, the difference in strength was just too great. Even with all their various methods of escape, they felt powerless. Not to mention that they were facing more than just Chen, someone who could crush them in battles alone, but they were also facing his laws of space. The battle of the Primordial Realm near the Eastern Fortress ended. The battle between the Godhood cultivators continued with great intensity. The battle between several tens of thousand Godhood cultivators of the Tian Yuan clan and Four Symbols Alliance would not end in a short amount of time. Even though the Tian Yuan clan was the weaker side in terms of Godhood cultivators, where they did not have as many God Kings as the Four Symbols Alliance, they gained the upper hand thanks to Primordial Realm Heya, who constantly slaughtered the God Kings. Chen did not interfere with the battle between the Godhood experts. He immediately vanished. Two streaks of light shot over a desert 1,000,000 kilometers to the west of the Pingtian Empire. They moved extremely quickly, vanishing in an instant. There were two people within the light. They both gave off the presences of Primordial Realm experts. Their energy surged as they were wrapped in the power of laws. One of them fled as the other pursued. They traveled further and further away from the Pingtian Empire. The person in pursuit was Protector Shui of the Tian Yuan clan. His white robes were covered with blood. Who knows whether it came from his allies or enemies? The person fleeing was the fifth heavenly layer Infinite Prime from the Four Symbols Alliance. He comprehended the laws of wind, so he possessed speed greater than those at the same cultivation level. As a result, even though he was weaker than Protector Shui was unable to catch up to him if he wanted to flee. The distance between them grew wider and wider. You're called Protector Shui, right? Save your energy. Although you're more powerful than me, you're nowhere close to me in terms of speed. Look, I haven't even used a secret technique, yet you still can't catch up to me. If I used a secret technique, do you believe that you wouldn't be able to see my shadow? Suddenly, the fleeing Primordial Realm expert sneered complacently. Protector Shui remained silent as he continued his pursuit. His expression was rather ugly. They grew further and further apart. He indeed could not catch up to him. After all, those who comprehended the laws of wind always possessed an advantage in terms of speed. At this moment, Protector Shui's eyes suddenly narrowed. He stared ahead in delight and stopped chasing. Why aren't you chasing anymore, Protector Shui? Is it because the fleeing Primordial Realm expert scoffed, but he stopped suddenly. His face was filled with surprise. Chen appeared before him silently, standing in the air and blocking his path. The laws of space, the fleeing Infinite Prime gulped with some difficulty. He was extremely fast with his laws of wind, much faster than people at the same level of cultivation as him. However, he was not faster than those with the laws of space. Chen struck out. He gripped the 9-star sword of heavenly ways and swung down mercilessly. With just a single strike, he cut through all the defenses of the fifth heavenly layer Infinite Prime, stabbing into his head and killing him. Patriarch. Protector Shui arrived before Chen. He clasped his fist in respect. Return and provide support to the other protectors. Chen nodded. He stowed the Primordial Realm expert's corpse away and then his sword. Afterwards, he grabbed Protector Shui by the shoulder, and they vanished. The next moment, Chen took Protector Shui back to the battlefield set near the Western Fortress. The Four Symbols Alliance had completely lost the upper hand there. They were forced into a constant retreat. Only 3 Infinite Primes remained. They were all early or mid-Infinite Primes. There was not a single late Infinite Prime among them. Currently, they were making their final desperate struggles in the encirclement led by Protector Qi and the 6 other protectors of the Tian Yuan clan. Swish! Protector Shui set off. As soon as he returned, he immediately entered the battle. Now that a 7th heavenly layer Infinite Prime had joined the fight, the 3 Primordial Realm experts of the Four Symbols Alliance who were making their final struggle became even more powerless. They were slain very soon, and the corpses naturally ended up in Jian Chen's hands. Very soon, the battle ended. This time, all the godhood experts and infinite primes who attacked the Ping Tian Empire were slain. Not a single one was left alive. The young Star Lord's campaign against the Ping Tian Empire ended in complete failure. After the battle ended, Chen left behind a few people to clean up the battlefield and deal with the aftermath. He himself returned to the Dong'an province with several tens of thousands of cultivators of the Tian Yuan clan. Patriarch, we've completed the head count. This time, a total of around 68,000 cultivators from the Tian Yuan clan took part in the battle. Less than 40,000 returned alive. We've lost close to 30,000 people in this battle. Shiyu held a battle report and explained to Chen in the full discussion hall of the Tian Yuan clan. The atmosphere was rather heavy. The upper echelon in the discussion hall became pained when they heard the number. The Tian Yuan clan had lost close to 30,000 people, which was nothing compared to the millions that the Ping Tian Empire had lost. However, these cultivators were all hand-picked. They were elites and could not be compared to regular soldiers. Chen just sat on the throne. He did not show any pain or sorrow when he heard the number. He said, for a clan to thrive, it needs to be baptized with many difficult tests and wars. The battle today is only the first step. We will go through many more in the future. Chen understood that the Tian Yuan clan was nowhere close to being the Four Symbols Alliance's opponent in terms of strength. If he had not killed off over half of the primordial realm experts with lightning speed, as well as all the cultivators from the southern fortress to decrease the difference, the Tian Yuan clan would definitely suffer defeat. The Patriarch is right. There is no organization or clan that does not develop through various tests of life and death across the entire cloud plane. I completely agree with the Patriarch. Protector Qi stood up and clasped his hands at Chen. After that, he hesitated a little. However, in the end, he still said, there's just something that has raised my doubts. Although the infinite primes we faced this time carried a very unfamiliar flag, I do know their identities a little, as I've met with them several times in the past. They're all members of the Four Symbols Alliance. May I ask why the people of the Four Symbols Alliance have turned against us? What? They're from the Four Symbols Alliance? Impossible. Hasn't the Four Symbols Alliance always been very friendly with the Tian Yuan clan? Why have they suddenly attacked us? After hearing Protector Qi's words, many people were surprised in the discussion hall. The entire place descended into a ruckus at that moment. Even Shiyu's complexion became extremely ugly. Chapter 2575. Unique Constitutions. The Tian Yuan clan held a nervous and stern meeting about the battle this time. As all of that happened, the young Star Lord unleashed his wrath in the luxurious residence that the Four Symbols Alliance had specially prepared for him in the distant headquarters of the Four Symbols Alliance. Trash. Useless trash. You're all useless trash. There were 3 5th Heavenly Layer Chaotic Primes and 2 4th Heavenly Layer Chaotic Primes, 5 Chaotic Primes in total, and you couldn't even deal with an old woman. I would give it to you if her cultivation was far beyond yours, but she was only a 5th Heavenly Layer Chaotic Prime as well. There were so many of you, yet you couldn't even defeat an opponent at the same level of cultivation as you. This is the first time I've seen trash as useless as you. A clamor rang out in the residence. The young Star Lord was furious, smashing the decor in the place one after another. He swore at the 4 great elders standing there, utterly cursing the 4 authoritative great elders of the Four Symbols Alliance. The 4 great elders said nothing. They chose to remain silent as they faced the furious young Star Lord. However, it was possible to tell from their sunken faces that they were not as peaceful inside as they seemed. As a matter of fact, a sliver of disgust and fury would flash through their eyes. This was what they felt towards the young Star Lord. The 4 of them were precious existences in the Four Symbols Alliance. They were only below the 5 ancestors. Even the 5 ancestors would not treat them like this, so they felt extremely furious now that the young Star Lord insulted them like this. Of course, they dared not show this fury. After all this cursing, the young Star Lord began to feel that it was pointless, so he gradually calmed down. He stood with his hands behind his back. He was arrogant and cold as he asked, "Who else do we have? Aside from the four of us, the others have all fallen in battle." Even Jian Li died to Su Ran's hands, a great elder said after a moment of silence. What? They've all fallen in battle. The young Star Lord's face changed. His handsome face darkened in anger. He had been insulted by the Tian Yuan clan at first. Afterwards, he gained reinforcements from the Four Symbols Alliance and led a group of experts to attack the Pingtian Empire in an aggressive manner. Originally, he wanted to make his way into the territory of the Pingtian Empire bit by bit with overwhelming strength, slowly approaching the Tian Yuan clan such that their patriarch, Jian Chen, could only watch them lose their territory while being unable to do anything. He wanted Jian Chen to regret what he did in the past. However, he had never thought that the group of experts he had led with lofty aspirations would be completely destroyed in the end. The young Star Lord immediately felt like his face was burning. He felt utterly ashamed. This was just too humiliating to his great pride and extraordinary identity. The Tian Yuan clan. The Tian Yuan clan. The young Star Lord was now utterly pale from fury. His anger and killing intent towards Jian Chen could no longer increase anymore. This was the first time he had been humiliated since birth. He could not endure it. Afterwards, the young Star Lord went to find the 5 ancestors of the Four Symbols Alliance, directly demanding them to destroy the Tian Yuan clan. He could no longer endure the thought of having the Tian Yuan clan exist on the cloud plane for another day. At the same time, he thought about how Jian Chen, who had tossed him out of the clan before, was probably scoffing and sneering away at him. The 5 ancestors of the Four Symbols Alliance furrowed their brows after receiving the young Star Lord's request. They felt rather pained. The conflict between the young Star Lord and the Tian Yuan clan was a matter that was extremely difficult to deal with. They needed to be careful with every step that they took, as even the slightest of negligence could cost the entire Four Symbols Alliance. At this moment, a middle-aged Infinite Prime walked in. He said politely, "Ancestors, we've discovered that a large number of scouts from the Righteous Alliance have infiltrated our southern region. Has the Righteous Alliance finally come?" The Gentle Breeze ancestor let out a long sigh. He said, "The Righteous Alliance is currently being led by the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak. The Peak Lord once took great care of the Tian Yuan clan, so we can be certain that if we take action, the Righteous Alliance definitely will not just stand by. That's right, we can't do anything. Otherwise, it's extremely likely that the consequences will become unmanageable." "We're still not the Righteous Alliance's opponent," said Zheng Hu. The 5 of them chimed in on one another, purposefully making the matter seem very severe. They were unwilling to personally deal with the Tian Yuan clan. "Then how should we deal with the Tian Yuan clan?" The young Star Lord's expression was extremely ugly. "We can't rush this matter. We need to come up with a long-term plan," said the Gentle Breeze ancestor, delaying the whole matter altogether. The young Star Lord returned to his residence with a sunken face. None of the peak experts of the Four Symbols Alliance were willing to take action, so there was nothing he could do to the Tian Yuan clan. After all, he had only brought a 9th heavenly layer Infinite Prime with him this time. That was not enough to deal with the Tian Yuan clan. "Mu Lin, do you have any method of contacting the Star Brilliance plane so that they can send some people over?" asked the young Star Lord. "Young Master gave strict orders that this trip to the cloud plane is only training for the young Master. If we call for experts of the Star Brilliance plane, that will probably break the rules of the training. The consequences will be severe if we anger Master," Mu Lin said carefully. He knew that the young Star Lord was very lustful, so he had purposely gotten the Four Symbols Alliance to send some women over. They were all dressed beautifully to serve the young Star Lord and ease his anger. "Who are these people? Get out of here, all of you, you ordinary women." The young Star Lord was already angered, so he was in no mood to admire them. Moreover, he had seen great beauties already. Regular women could no longer interest him, so he chased them all out. "If the young Master likes women, I do have 2 people in mind. At this moment, a voice rang out in the head of Mulin. It came from one of the great elders responsible for the young Star Lord's safety. Who are they? Mulin immediately asked. The two princesses of the Xuandao Empire in the northern region. Not only are they absolutely alluring, but they possess the heavenly Yin body and the innate body of ways as well. The heavenly Yin body and the innate body of ways? That's rather rare constitutions in the saints' world. In particular, the heavenly Yin body can lead to unimaginable benefits once someone joins with them. The young master will definitely like them. Mulin's eyes immediately lit up and asked for their exact location. Chapter 2576, Tong Tian's visit. Afterwards, Mulin directly made his way to the northern region of the Cloud Plain. The four great elders gathered together after he left. They stared in the direction that Mulin had traveled off into as they discussed among themselves secretly. The northern region is the Righteous Alliance's territory. Now that the young Star Lord's bodyguard has gone there like that, do you think there will be conflict with the Righteous Alliance? Conflict will be good. Isn't that what our Four Symbols Alliance wants? However, since he is the bodyguard of the young Star Lord, the Righteous Alliance probably won't dare to do anything to him. Whatever. All we need to do is plant a seed of grievance in the Righteous Alliance and let it sprout slowly. I heard the Xuandao Empire's two princesses are engaged to two peak clans in the central region. Under the lead of the Lord of the Heavens Linked Peak, the ancestors of the Righteous Alliance gathered together for a secret discussion. Now, we're basically certain that the foster son of the Nine Brilliant Star Lord, the young Star Lord, has come to the Cloud Plain, and the Four Symbols Alliance basically wants to ally themselves with him, the Lord of the Heavens Linked Peak said sternly. The Four Symbols Alliance had not made the young Star Lord's presence public, and extremely few people knew about the matter. However, the Righteous Alliance was just too developed. They had people who had infiltrated the upper echelon of the Four Symbols Alliance, so they received the most recent news very soon. That's bad. Even if the young Star Lord has only come to the Cloud Plain for training, and he has brought next to no experts with him, his identity is still there. The Four Symbols Alliance clearly wants to use him against us. The ancestor of the cosmic sect, Xuandao, stroked his long beard and let out a long sigh. The ancestor of the Tong family, Tong Wuming, the ancestor of the Godsfallen clan, Luo Mantian, and Lian Wuji from the Fire God clan frowned as well. If the Four Symbols Alliance allied themselves with the young Star Lord, it would be a great calamity for their Righteous Alliance. Although the young Star Lord did not possess particularly great power as an individual, his special and exalted status gave him great power. If he wanted to assist the Four Symbols Alliance, it would not be something that their Righteous Alliance could handle. We only have one path ahead of us now that everything is like this, and that's the Tian Yuan clan. The ancestor of the Tong family, Tong Wuming, seemed extremely old. His face was riddled with wrinkles as he squinted his eyes. His gaze was deep. The heavenly palace of Bishing is behind the Tian Yuan clan, and their First Majesty is a supreme expert who has stunned the saints' world by hunting down the heaven-splitting ancestor. They can indeed face the organization behind the young Star Lord. However, the Tian Yuan clan has always been unwilling to have anything to do with us and the Four Symbols Alliance. I think it will be rather difficult for us to ally with the Tian Yuan clan, said the ancestor of the Fire God clan, Lian Wuji, in thought. He wore fire-red robes as his long, scarlet hair danced about like a ball of flames. Times have changed. Ming Dong is no longer present, and the Divine General from the Divine Palace of Bishing has left as well. The Tian Yuan clan no longer possesses as great a deterrence towards the Four Symbols Alliance as in the past. I believe the Tian Yuan clan needs us, said the ancestor of the cosmic sect, Xuandao. I have a great-grandson who just happens to have some ties with Chen. Why don't I let this great-grandson of mine pay a visit to the Tian Yuan clan and see what Chen thinks? Tong Wuming said. That would be perfect. The news of the war that the Ping Tian Empire experienced spread across all 5 regions of the Cloud Plain in just a day. It caused quite the disturbance. At the same time, the mysterious organization that had a 9-starred banner became the center of attention of all organizations on the cloud plane as well. Conversations and discussions about this mysterious organization could basically be heard everywhere. Only a handful of peak organizations knew exactly what the mysterious organization was. Until they distributed the news, the organizations of lower status would naturally have no idea. I wonder where these people who provoked the Tian Yuan clan came from. Don't they know that even the two great alliances on the cloud plane do not dare to provoke the Tian Yuan clan? There definitely won't be a good outcome for them since they have provoked the Tian Yuan clan. Let's just wait and see. This organization with 9 stars will definitely be in for trouble. The most recent news is that the Tian Yuan clan killed one of the 5 chaotic primes from the organization on the spot. What? Even an expert like a chaotic prime died? Heavens! Now that I think about our mountain range sect, our most powerful ancestor is only an infinite prime. He's nowhere close to being a chaotic prime. The Tian Yuan clan really is powerful. Just as these people discussed about the Tian Yuan clan and the mysterious organization enthusiastically, a special guest arrived in the Dong'an province of the Pingtian Empire. He was a handsome young man with a striking appearance. He wore luxurious, white robes as he held a folding fan. He bore an impudent smile on his face as he strolled through the busy streets, constantly letting out sighs of amazement. This young man was the young master who had once saved Chen back in the dwelling of God King Duanmu, Tong Tian. A middle-aged man in robes followed Tong Tian closely. Even though he was only a god king, his presence was much more powerful than most late god kings. This middle-aged man was Tong Tian's personal bodyguard, Chen. When I think of the past, brother Chen had still been risking his life to fight for the resources left behind by a god king, but now, his status has become so great. The clan he founded has single-handedly become renowned across the entire cloud plane, a target for our ancestor to ally with. Then you look at me. I haven't changed much at all compared to when I first met Chen. Uncle Chen, why do you think that people can be so different? Tong Tian swung his fan. He seemed like a careless fool, as if he had been devastated. No matter how you put it, I am the prodigy with the greatest talent in the past 100,000 years in the Tong family's history. However, once you compare me to Chen, the gap is just far too shocking. Tong Tian sighed gently. He was extremely hurt. Young master, if you work hard on cultivation, you might not be able to catch up to the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan, but you will be able to surpass many others. It's extremely likely for you to make it onto the God King's throne in the future, said Chen encouragingly. Tong Tian was unaffected. The God King's throne? So what? It's just an opportunity for those God Kings who like to show off to make a name for themselves. Look at brother Chen. He never attempted the God King's throne, but he killed many Supreme God Kings when he was a God King. It's said that when half of the Supreme God Kings on the God King's throne vanished without a trace, it was directly related to brother Chen as well. Very soon, Tong Tian and Qin Zhang arrived at the Tian Yuan clan. They stated their identity and intentions and a guard immediately passed the message on. As soon as Chen learnt that Tong Tian had come to visit, he sent people to bring him to where he resided. Chen had always felt grateful towards Tong Tian. When he was still weak and faced life-threatening danger in God King Duanmu's dwelling in the past, it was Tong Tian's sudden appearance that saved him in an overwhelming manner. He even gave him a precious god-tier pill, allowing him to heal from his heavy wounds in an extremely short amount of time. As a result, Tong Tian had basically saved Chen's life. They would naturally have a conversation when they met. After a simple greeting and some talk, Tong Tian directly approached the main reason for why he had come. He mentioned that the Righteous Alliance wanted to ally themselves with the Tian Yuan clan. Chen had already guessed Tong Tian's intentions, so he was not surprised at all. However, he did not agree. He shook his head gently and said, "Brother Tong Tian, I'll be frank. If your Righteous Alliance allies with our Tian Yuan clan, it will probably only be detrimental for you. There won't be any benefits at all." Chapter 2577, the Xuandao Empire's crisis, there won't be any benefits at all? Brother Jian, may I ask why you say that? Tong Tian was confused. Jian said after some thought, if I've guessed correctly, your righteous alliance should already know that the Four Symbols Alliance has begun to rope in the young Star Lord. As the only child of the 9 brilliant Star Lord, the young Star Lord holds extremely great power. The ancestors of your righteous alliance are worried that the young Star Lord will assist the Four Symbols Alliance against you, so they thought of the Heavenly Palace of Biyao in hopes of using the Heavenly Palace of Biyao against the young Star Lord when the day comes. That's a good idea, except you overestimate me far too much. I cannot make the Heavenly Palace of Biyao step in with my power alone. All I can do is protect myself. As a result, if your righteous alliance gets involved, it's not necessarily a good thing for you. Jian directly explained everything. Although he could directly declare war on the Four Symbols Alliance with the support of the Righteous Alliance, or even destroy them in a single stroke, there really was no benefit for the Righteous Alliance in doing so. If the Righteous Alliance did not take part, they would not offend the young Star Lord, and the young Star Lord would not resent the Righteous Alliance. However, once they did take part, they would really be falling out with the young Star Lord. By then, even if the Four Symbols Alliance was destroyed, the Righteous Alliance would have to face the retaliation of the young Star Lord. The Righteous Alliance definitely could not deal with the retaliation of the young Star Lord. With Jian's explanation, Tong Tian also understood the connections involved. He could not help but frown. He also came to a certain understanding that perhaps the Tian Yuan clan's relationship with the Heavenly Palace of Biyao was not as sturdy as his ancestor believed it to be. Jian could use his merit from returning the Inata Tower to protect the Tian Yuan clan, but he definitely would not be able to protect the Righteous Alliance. Meanwhile, at the majestic imperial palace of the Xuandao Empire that was enveloped by a powerful formation, only a few gates were left uncovered, allowing officials to move in and out. However, at this moment, a figure flew over with extremely great speed. His energy surged as he made the wind and clouds churn. His tremendous presence enveloped the entire imperial palace. This was an infinite prime. His level of cultivation was so great, having reached the 9th heavenly layer. As soon as he arrived, he alarmed the ancestors of the Xuandao Empire. Tian Shang of the 3 ancestors of the Xuandao Empire opened her eyes in the forbidden grounds of the imperial palace. She stared outside sternly. The person who had come had a presence so tremendous that it had reached the 9th heavenly layer of infinite prime. An expert like that could crush the entire Xuandao Empire. He's actually come right to the imperial palace. Who is he? Tian Shuang thought before appearing outside with a flash. The 2 other infinite primes of the Xuandao Empire emerged from seclusion at the same time as well. They planned on going out and receiving him personally. The 3 ancestors of the Xuandao Empire dared not be careless now that a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime had personally come. Boom! However, at this moment, a deafening rumble rang out. The barrier around the imperial palace shook violently. It rapidly dimmed before shattering easily despite being the most powerful formation in the entire empire. As soon as the person approached the imperial palace, they struck out, destroying their protective formation with a single strike. He did not try to talk to them at all. The expressions of Tian Shuang and the 2 other ancestors, who had originally planned on greeting him politely, immediately changed. He had expressed that he had come with ill intentions. Please stop. May I ask how our Xuandao Empire has offended you and made you so angry? You destroyed the formation of our imperial palace as soon as you arrived. Tian Shuang called out, flying into the sky with the 2 other primordial realm experts of the Xuandao Empire. At this moment, the 3 of them saw the person in question. He was an old man who seemed extremely ordinary, but his presence was so powerful that it was enough to cause the 3 of them to shiver. A 9th heavenly layer infinite prime was like a mountain to the 3 ancestors of the Xuandao Empire, who were at the 4th heavenly layer at most. It was suffocating as they faced him. The old man was the young Star Lord's bodyguard, Mu Lin. Mu Lin stood in the sky. He had suffered at the hands of the Tian Yuan clan before and had also returned in defeat during the young Star Lord's attack on the Ping Tian Empire. As a result, he felt extremely aggrieved. Now that he faced Tian Shuang and the others who were weaker than him, he finally seemed to regain his confidence. He used his powerful presence to envelope the three of them and coldly said, "Where are the people in possession of the innate body of ways and the heavenly Yin body? Immediately summon them so that they can return with me and serve the young Star Lord." The expression of the three immediately changed with that. They did not know who the young Star Lord was, but since he could make a ninth heavenly layer infinite prime serve him, his identity was definitely extraordinary. He was not an existence that their Xuandao Empire could provoke. "Xinger and Lanner are already engaged to the young master of the Godsfallen clan," said Tian Shuang. The Godsfallen clan was a peak clan on the Cloud Plain. Now, she could only mention the Godsfallen clan in hopes of scaring him away. However, she did not know that the young Star Lord mentioned by Mulin was far greater than she had imagined him to be. The Godsfallen clan? Even they dare to contend for the heavenly Yin body and the innate body of ways with the young Star Lord? Mulin was filled with contempt as he sneered. Afterwards, he spread his hand, and powerful energy immediately gathered over, condensing into a huge hand that reached towards the imperial palace below. He did not take the three ancestors seriously at all. He could not be bothered to waste words on them anymore, so he directly took action. He had already located the two women among the various halls. Stop! Tian Shang and the two other ancestors of the Xuandao Empire were furious. How could they just watch Mulin take people away in such a fearless fashion? The three of them immediately interfered. "Even you want to try and stop me? You're looking to die." Mulin's eyes turned cold. He used one hand against his opponents, forming a hand seal to use a secret technique, which conjured a starlight that enveloped the three of them. He used his other hand to control the hand of energy, demolishing a hall below with a rumble. He grabbed Xinger and Lanner who were cultivating. Tian Shuang and the two other old men of the Xuandao Empire were repelled by Mu Ling's secret technique. They became covered with blood, injured. Out of the three of them, the most powerful, Tian Shuang, was only a fourth heavenly layer infinite prime. A huge difference existed between them and Mulin, who had reached the ninth heavenly layer. They really are great beauties. The young Star Lord will definitely like them. Mulin studied Xinger and Lanner and nodded in satisfaction. Afterwards, he looked at Tian Shuang and the others, and killing intent shone in his eyes. "Your northern region seems to stand on the side of the righteous alliance. Since that's the case, I can't spare you." With that, Mulin struck out once again, planning on killing the three of them. The expressions of the three ancestors of the Xuandao Empire changed drastically. They immediately struck out to receive his attacks that forced them into a battle above the imperial palace of the Xuandao Empire. A battle between primordial realm experts was extremely terrifying. Every time they clashed, the energy shockwaves they erupted with were devastating. Coupled with how they were only a few hundred meters away from the ground, the imperial palace was reduced to ruins in just 2 clashes. Many armored soldiers scurried about for their lives. People were dead and injured. "Father! Father!" Trapped, Xinger and Lanner called out sorrowfully. They watched the Emperor in dragon robes get knocked away by the shockwaves of energy, spurting blood along the way before being buried in the ruins. Spurt! Spurt! At the same time, 2 heads flew high into the sky. Blood dyed the sky red. Aside from Tian Shuang, the ancestors of the Xuandao Empire had all been beheaded and slain by Mulin. Meanwhile, Tian Shuang was covered in blood. She was heavily injured. Chapter 2578, The Godsfallen Clan. Looking at her headless and dead companions, Tian Shuang was filled with grief. She glanced at Xinger and Lanner, who had been captured by Mulin one last time, before gritting her teeth and fleeing into the distance. "None of you can leave today." Mulin sneered as he gave off a bloodthirsty killing intent. He had repressed this far too much these days. Now that he finally had an opportunity to vent, he naturally wanted a massacre. Mu Lin immediately transformed into a blur in pursuit. He moved extremely quickly, approaching Tian Shuang in an instant. After all, the difference in strength was just too great. Not only were their battle prowess on completely different levels, but their speeds were as well. How could Tian Shuang escape from Mu Lin as a fourth heavenly layer infinite prime? Tian Shuang's heart suddenly sank. Mu Lin clearly wanted to kill her. But afterwards, determination flooded her eyes. Immediately, faint flames sprang up from her body. At that moment, Tian Shuang burned her essence blood in a frenzy, paying a great price to use a secret technique and immediately travel millions of kilometers away. Mu Lin sneered. He expanded the senses of his soul and easily found Tian Shuang. He shot off like a comet, pursuing with lightning speed. Several million kilometers was extremely distant. It was impossible for regular people to even cross a tenth of that in their lifetime, but to a ninth heavenly layer infinite prime like Mu Lin, it was only a matter of a few dozen seconds. Several million kilometers away, Tian Shuang collapsed in a wasteland powerlessly. She was pale. She had been heavily injured already, and then she burned her essence blood to use a secret technique. Her vitality was sapped. However, she knew that this was nowhere near enough to escape from the pursuit of a ninth heavenly layer infinite prime. Now that she faced potential death, she dared not rest. She immediately struggled to her feet, and with a flip of her hand, a white, jade disc, 30 centimeters across, appeared in her hand. She took out a three-color divine crystal and activated it. Immediately, the disc shone brightly and conjured a map. It gave off a power that could teleport people away. The map actually depicted the 5 regions of the cloud plane. Through the map, it was possible to see where the 5 regions were located, as well as the vast ocean that separated the regions. Tian Shuang pointed at the map, and in the next moment, she vanished after being enveloped by intense light. A teleportation formation disc? She actually has a teleportation formation disc on her. At the same time, Mu Lin stopped in the distance and revealed some slight surprise. Whatever. I'll just spare you for now. He knew that it would be extremely troublesome to chase a primordial realm expert with a teleportation formation disc. Coupled with the fact that he did not want to spend so much time on someone unimportant, he just gave up. He immediately hurried back to the southern region with the 2 princesses. The Godsfallen clan resided in a great mountain range. It was enveloped by powerful formations, and it seemed like a sea of clouds from the outside. Suddenly, the space near the Godsfallen clan twisted. Tian Shuang fell out from the space there with a pale face. As soon as she arrived, she crushed a jade talisman. Before long, a man appeared from the sea of clouds. He seemed to be in his 30s. He had a resolute demeanor and a striking appearance. The man was an infinite prime. Tian Shuang, what's wrong with you? Who injured you like this? How dare they? The man had originally arrived here joyously, but when he saw how Tian Shuang was all bloodied, his expression immediately changed. He became pained and also felt great fury. A 9th heavenly layer infinite prime destroyed the imperial palace of the Xuandao Empire and abducted Xing'er and Lan'er. Tian Shuang cut right to the chase, explaining everything that happened in just a few sentences. That actually happened? How dare they? Xing'er is the fiancé of one of Great Elder Luo Heping's great-grandsons, while Lan'er is betrothed to young Master Luo Yingjian. Young Master Luo Yingjian is a direct descendant of the ancestor. Who is bold enough to even abduct people of our Godsfallen clan? The man was furious. The Godsfallen clan was a clan that stood at the apex of the cloud plane. They possessed great status. Now that someone had actually come looking for trouble with them, the person in question was basically looking to die. So what if he's a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime? That's just a slightly larger ant in the eyes of our Godsfallen clan. Tian Shuang, don't worry. I will report this to the great elders right now. Here's a god tier pill. Heal up. With that, the man directly sent a message into the clan. He was a direct descendant of the Godsfallen clan. His name was Luo Fei, and he was an infinite prime, so he possessed quite some status in the Godsfallen clan. As a result, he could directly contact the great elders there. Any person who had the right to become a great elder in the Godsfallen clan was a chaotic prime. Tian Shuang nodded. Her eyes were filled with hatred. The two other ancestors of the Xuandao Empire had died right before her, which filled her with resentment. If she wanted revenge, she had to go to the Godsfallen clan. As a result, she was eager for the Godsfallen clan to send chaotic prime sooner and kill Mulin. As Tian Shuang waited anxiously, an old man emerged from the Godsfallen clan very soon. He wore black robes, and his eyebrows were as straight as swords. His eyes shone brightly. He seemed very much like a soldier. However, he kept his presence concealed, so it was impossible to sense this chaotic prime. Greetings to the Great Elder. Tian Shuang rejoiced inside and immediately greeted him with clasped hands when she saw the old man. She knew the old man. He was one of the great elders of the Godsfallen clan, Luo Heping. One of his great-grandsons had an engagement with Xinger. Now that Xinger had been kidnapped, it only made sense for Luo Heping to take action. Luo Heping nodded. He was rather cold, as if he did not take Tian Shuang seriously at all. I've already found this person's traces. Let's go. We'll capture him right now. No matter who he is and what his background is, we cannot spare him for opposing the Godsfallen clan, said Luo Heping as if he looked down on everyone. Indeed, with the Godsfallen clan's strength, they had the right to do so on the Cloud Plain. They were a member of the Righteous Alliance. Although the Righteous Alliance was known as one of the two rulers of the Cloud Plain along with the Four Symbols Alliance, everyone knew that the Righteous Alliance was actually far more powerful than the Four Symbols Alliance. However, just when they were about to set off, Luo Heping's expression changed slightly. A sliver of surprise appeared in his eyes, and his face changed rapidly. He became uncertain. Great Elder, what happened? Tian Shuang was alarmed. She stared at Luo Heping in bewilderment. Luo Heping suddenly fell silent. After quite a while, he said slowly, from today onwards, our Godsfallen clan is annulling our engagements with the two princesses of the Xuandao Empire. With that, Luo Heping turned around and vanished back into the Godsfallen clan. He did not even look back. Tian Shuang was completely stunned. She blanked out. What is this all about? Luo Fei was stunned as well. He felt rather tongue-tied. He had never expected this to happen. Chapter 2579. Tian Shuang's plea. Despair began to fill Tian Shuang. She felt completely powerless. In the past, when Xinger and Lanner were engaged to the two young masters of great status from the Godsfallen clan, the Godsfallen clan had become what the Xuandao Empire depended on the most. As a result, when the Xuandao Empire faced a crisis, Tian Shuang only thought of the Godsfallen clan. She was eager to see the Godsfallen clan stand up for the Xuandao Empire and avenge their two ancestors and save Xinger and Lanner. However, she had never expected that the Godsfallen clan would cower, even proactively annulling Xinger and Lanner's engagements. Tian Shuang knew what this all meant with her cleverness. This meant that the old man who had killed the two ancestors and kidnapped the two princesses had a background so great that even the Godsfallen clan was reluctant to provoke. At that moment, Tian Shuang became utterly dejected. She saw no hope in getting revenge anymore. Tian Shuang, don't panic for now. Just wait here. I'll go ask the Great Elder what this is all about. Luo Fei liked Tian Shuang, so he did not want to see her heartbroken. He immediately comforted her before returning to the Godsfallen clan to find Great Elder Luo Heping. It's the ancestors' order. Fei, go back. Don't interfere with the matter of the Xuandao Empire. I don't think this matter is as simple as it seems. Don't burden the entire clan just because of what you want. Luo Heping sat on a pillow as he spoke slowly and powerfully. He gazed into the distance with his deep eyes, as if he could see Mulin traveling to the southern region with a single glance. Mixed emotions appeared in his eyes. The heart of Luo Fei, who wholeheartedly wanted to help Tian Shuang before, immediately sank from that. The ancestor had personally spoken on the matter. He knew that there was no chance of reverting the decision anymore. The ancestor of the Godsfallen clan was the only Grand Prime in the clan. His will represented the entire Godsfallen clan. No one could defy him. Sorry, Tian Shuang. I can't help you. Luo Fei returned outside with a heavy heart. He was also filled with powerlessness. Tian Shuang said nothing. She turned around and left. She had quite a bleak figure. The imperial palace of the Xuandao Empire had been destroyed, reduced to ruins. The two ancestors were dead, and the two princesses had been abducted, yet there was nothing she could do as one of the ancestors of the Xuanfei Empire. For the first time ever, Tian Shuang felt helpless. So what if she was a primordial realm expert? Suddenly, Tian Shuang seemed to think of something. She suddenly looked into the distance, and a final sliver of hope lit up in her despaired eyes. In the next moment, she took out the white, jade disc and activated it. Power swelled forth, and the map of the entire cloud plain was conjured up once again. Tian Shuang pointed at one of the 5 regions of the cloud plain. The teleportation formation was immediately activated, taking her away with a flash of white light. She had pointed at the southern region of the cloud plain where the Ping Tian Empire stood. Within Jian Chen's luxurious residence in the Tian Yuan clan. Brother Jian Chen, the matters are urgent, so I must return. Thank you for receiving me. Tong Tian stood up and immediately bid farewell to Jian Chen. He needed to report what he learnt from Jian Chen to his ancestor immediately so that the Righteous Alliance could decide what they would do. Jian Chen did not urge him to stay. Her personally accompanied Tong Tian to the entrance of the Tian Yuan clan and watched him set off with Qin Zheng. Jian Chen returned to his residence after Tong Tian left. He did not cultivate. Instead, he sat on his jade bed with his eyes closed, pondering just how he could handle the young Star Lord's retaliation. He had a basic understanding of the young Star Lord's temperament now. He knew that the young Star Lord would not stop with just a single failure. If the young Star Lord only used the power of the Four Symbols Alliance, Jian Chen had nothing to worry about. He was afraid that the young Star Lord would call for experts from the Star Brilliance plane. That would make things truly troublesome. What a powerful pulse of space. Suddenly, Jian Chen's expression changed, and he gazed into the distance. With his comprehension of the laws of space, any pulse in space within the Ping Tian Empire, no matter how small it was, would be unable to escape from his senses. It's actually Senior Tian Shuang from the Xuandao Empire. Jian Chen immediately expanded the senses of his soul and easily recognized the person who had come. However, when he saw how bloodied Tian Shuang was, his face immediately changed slightly. A vicious light flashed through his eyes. He did not have any particular ties with Tian Shuang, nor did he have any deep ties with the Xuandao Empire of the northern region. However, Tian Shuang was Fairy Hao Yu's sister. Back when he fell into the hands of the commander of the 7th Army from the Empyrean demon cult, Yashi Lian, it was all because of Tian Shuang's disc of heavenly ways that Fairy Hao Yu managed to make it in time and save him. Now, Tian Shuang had come straight to the Tian Yuan clan as soon as she arrived in the Ping Tian Empire, without even cleaning up her bloody mess. Please pass on the message that Tian Shuang of the Xuandao Empire seeks the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan for an urgent matter. Very soon, Tian Shuang arrived at the entrance of the Tian Yuan clan and said to a guard. The guards, who watched over the entrance of the Tian Yuan clan, studied Tian Shuang. They seemed rather judgmental and scornful. Across the years, countless large clans and organizations had paid visits to the Tian Yuan clan. There were many envoys from the Four Symbols Alliance and Righteous Alliance among them as well. All of them had come with pure respect and admiration, unwilling to act haughtily at all. As a result, the guards who watched over the main entrance gradually developed a sense of superiority. At the same time, they gained a detailed understanding of all the organizations on the cloud plane. The guards just happened to have heard of the Xuandao Empire of the northern region before. They were only an ancient empire, so the guard really did not take them seriously. Now, someone from the empire wanted to see the patriarch. Did they really think they were someone relevant? The guards at the entrance sneered. Just when they were about to say something, a voice rang out from within the Tian Yuan clan. "Senior Tian Shuang, please come in." With that, Chen walked out. "Greetings to the patriarch." The expressions of the guards stationed at the entrance immediately changed when they saw him. They kneeled in greeting, and the people who were scoffing broke out into a cold sweat out of fright. "Chen, I've finally managed to meet you." When she saw Chen, it was as if Tian Shuang saw her final glimmer of hope. Chen studied Tian Shuang. He could tell with a single glance that she was heavily injured. However, as they were at the entrance, they could not really talk. "Senior Tian Shuang, come in and talk." "Chen, can you save Xinger and Lanner?" "Across the entire cloud plane, there's probably no one who can save the two of them aside from you," Tian Shuang said frantically as soon as she entered a guest room. She knew Chen would not care about the deaths of the other ancestors of the Xuandao Empire, so she could only mention Xinger and Lanner. This was because in the past, Chen did have his own encounter with the two princesses in the Xuandao Empire when he was still weak. "Senior Tian Shuang, what happened?" Chen asked. He was in the southern region. The senses of his soul could not reach the northern region, so he had no idea what the Xuandao Empire had just experienced. Chapter 2580, Intercepted. An expert barged into our Xuandao Empire and abducted Xinger and Lanner. Tian Shang explained everything that had happened in just a few sentences. "After this happened, I went to the Godsfallen clan first in hopes that they would step forward for us, but I never thought that the Godsfallen clan would actually sever their ties with our Xuandao Empire," added Tian Shuang. Even though she hoped the Tian Yuan clan would do something very much, she did not wish to cause problems for the Tian Yuan clan either. As a result, she revealed the fact that her enemy had a great background. Chen lowered his head in thought with that. He paced around with his hands behind his back as he said slowly, "A ninth heavenly layer infinite prime that even the Godsfallen clan dares not provoke? I think I already know who he is. There's only them left on the entire cloud plane that can make the Godsfallen clan so cautious." "Chen, do you know his identity?" Tian Shuang's face lit up and immediately asked. Chen nodded slightly. He drew in the air and created an image of Mulin. He asked, "Is it him?" "That's right, it's him." "It's him." Tian Shuang immediately gritted her teeth when she saw Mulin. Hatred filled her eyes as she asked, "Chen, who is he?" Chen glanced at Tian Shuang deeply and said, "There's no need for you to know who he is. All you need to understand is that his background is far more terrifying than you've imagined it to be. Anyways, neither the Four Symbols Alliance or the Righteous Alliance cannot afford to offend this person. It makes sense that the Godsfallen clan would distance themselves from this." With that, Tian Shuang shook. Her pale face became even paler. She said powerlessly, "Are Xinger and Lanner really done for?" "Senior Tian Shuang, don't worry. Princess Xinger and Princess Lanner are acquaintances of mine, so I will never just watch and let them fall into the claws of a demon. The Righteous Alliance and Four Symbols Alliance dare not offend them, but that doesn't mean that I'm afraid of offending them," said Chen, comforting her. Towards the end, his voice became cold. "Senior Tian Shuang, how long ago did this happen?" Chen continued to ask. The flames of hope lit up inside Tian Shuang again with that. She replied, "Less than 2 hours ago." That was true. Due to the Disk of Heavenly Ways, Tian Shuang could teleport from wherever she wished to wherever she wished. As a result, she was able to cross over directly to the southern region in such a short amount of time. Now that the regional teleportation formation has been shut down by the Four Symbols Alliance, you can only cross regions by flying. In under 2 hours, a ninth heavenly layer infinite prime should have only reached the boundary of the northern region. He still should not have entered the southern region, Chen murmured before making his decision very soon. He said to Tian Shuang, Senior Tian Shuang, just heal up here. I'll go fetch the two princesses. With that, Chen suddenly vanished. He had left the Tian Yuan clan and the Ping Tian Empire through the laws of space. Tian Shuang opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something, but then she realized that she had completely lost track of Chen. The laws of space. Tian Shuang was surprised inside. Chen's laws of space had actually reached such a profound level, which shocked her very much. But very soon, she began to worry again. She had come to the Tian Yuan clan because they had a chaotic prime. Their status was so great that even the Four Symbols Alliance and Righteous Alliance dared not offend them. Originally, she wanted Chen to ask the chaotic prime to take action through his status as patriarch, but she had never thought that Chen would just set off alone. Although she did not know Chen's current cultivation, she was confident that Chen was not the 9th Heavenly Layer Infinite Prime's opponent. When she met Chen in the Xuandao Empire last time, he was only a mere overgod. How could he grow to a level where he could fight 9th Heavenly Layer Infinite Primes in such a short amount of time? The southern and northern regions of the Cloud Plain were separated by a vast ocean. It was exactly because of this ocean that the Cloud Plain was split into 5 regions. A figure moved through the air with lightning speed. He shot off into the horizon in an instant and vanished. He was Mu Lin, who was returning from the northern region. With his speed as a 9th Heavenly Layer Infinite Prime, it would not take him very long to go from one region to another because an expert like that could travel through the stars. His personal speed was on par with some spaceships. As a result, in just 2 hours, Mu Lin had left the northern region and arrived above the ocean between the northern and southern regions. Very soon, he crossed the ocean and returned to the southern region. I never thought we would actually come across the rare heavenly Yin body and the innate body of Ways in a small place like the Cloud Plain. Moreover, the 2 women who possess these physiques are so alluring. The young master will definitely be happy if I take them back, thought Mu Lin. He was carrying a divine hall with him. Xing'er and Lan'er were currently trapped in there. I'll use the 2 of them to calm down the young master first, and then we can slowly come up with an idea to destroy the Tian Yuan clan. The mere Tian Yuan clan actually shows such disrespect to the young master. They're so ignorant. If it weren't for Master's orders preventing the young master from using the forces of the Star Brilliance Plane, the young master would only need a single word to destroy the measly Tian Yuan clan. Do they really think the heavenly palace of Bishing can keep them safe? As soon as he thought of the Tian Yuan clan, Mu Ling was furious and filled with contempt. The heavenly palace of Bishing no longer possessed a Grand Exalt, while the 9 Brilliant Star Lord had the Blood Tier Grand Exalt. How was the First Majesty of the heavenly palace of Bishing supposed to stand up to the 9 Brilliant Star Lord? However, at this moment, Mu Lin's expression suddenly changed. He came to a halt, forcefully stopping. He hovered 10,000 meters in the air as he stared ahead with an ugly expression. His eyes were filled with intense fury and killing intent. A white-robed young man sat on the bed of clouds before him. A small table compressed from clouds stood before the young man. He sat before the table idly, drinking tea leisurely. The wind blew fiercely at such a high altitude, causing the young man's hair to dance about as his white robes were buffeted as well. He seemed liberated and unburdened. Chen. Mu Lin's face sank as he spoke through gritted teeth in utter resentment. He stared right at the white-robed young man who sat there drinking tea. It seemed as if he had been waiting there for quite some time now. Are Princess Xing'er and Lan'er from the Xuandao Empire with you? Chen remained seated. He gently sipped his tea as he asked emotionlessly. You're referring to the people in possession of the heavenly Yin body and the innate body of Ways, right? What has that got to do with you? Mu Lin snorted coldly as his eyes shone with killing intent. He did not cower at all. When enemies met, their eyes would blaze with hatred. He utterly resented Chen for the humiliation he suffered at the Tian Yuan clan. Although he had suffered a defeat at Chen's hands in the past, he believed that was due to his carelessness. He did not expect Chen to have grasped the laws of space. In reality, he felt no fear towards Chen at all. He was confident that he was no weaker than Chen. I am acquainted with Princess Xinger and Lanner, so you've gone rather overboard with your actions. Chen's voice remained neutral. It was just cold. Humph, Chen, you're struggling to keep yourself alive, yet you're still worrying about others? If you have so much spare time, why don't you choose where you'll be buried in the future? Just in case you'll have nowhere and become reduced to food for birds and beasts. Mu Lin sneered. As he spoke, he took out a divine haul and continued, "They're indeed with me. But what can you do?" Secretly, Mu Lin had already mobilized all his power, ready to clash with Chen at any time. "What can I do?" "I can kill you." Chen's voice became rather stern. He glanced past the divine haul in Mu Lin's hands, and in the next moment, he exploded with light. Using his body as a sword, he shred the clouds and sliced through space, shooting towards Mu Lin with unstoppable might. Chapter 2581, Instantaneous Comprehension. As soon as Chen struck out, he shone resplendently. He emitted streaks of light that outshone the scorching sun in the sky, making the world pale in comparison. It was an extremely astonishing sight. Swish! The streak of light moved extremely quickly, arriving before Mu Lin in an instant. It was even faster than lightning. Perfect. I want to settle everything from the past with this battle. Mu Lin called out. He did not cower either. Surging energy erupted from his body, causing the space there to tremble. A sword also appeared in his hand, and he swung it. 9 dazzling stars immediately condensed, giving off the might of the world. They seemed to contain the power of the ways. Apparition of the 9 stars. As Mu Lin pointed out with his sword, the 9 resplendent stars shot through the air, charging towards Chen in a single row. This time, Mu Lin used his full strength right from the start. He directly used a god-tier battle skill. He dared not be as careless as before. Chen unleashed the full power of the 9-star sword of heavenly ways in his hands and also conjured 9 illusionary stars. They received the first incoming star and collided together, immediately erupting with a deafening boom. The star was cut to pieces by Chen's attack. However, the star came from a god-tier battle skill after all. It was already enough to threaten chaotic primes to a certain degree since a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime was using it. As a result, as soon as he cut the first star into pieces, Chen's entire right arm grew numb. If it were not for his tough chaotic body, his entire right arm probably would have been shaken to pieces. Chen was indifferent. Chaotic force surged through his body as he completely unleashed the great defense of the chaotic body. He struck out 9 times with lightning speed, using the full power of the sword each time. He destroyed Mu Lin's god-tier battle skills as the star were extinguished. With 9 deafening rumbles, terrifying energy exploded in the air. Sword chi scattered out in all directions, punching bottomless holes in the ground below. Meanwhile, space was ripped wide open. Chen drifted backwards in the violent energy. The storm of energy was simply too violent. Even Mu Lin struggled to remain stable, so he was sent backwards by it as well. Starfall. Along the way, Mu Lin used another god-tier battle skill. This god-tier battle skill also came from the Star Brilliance Mountain, and it was created by the 9 Brilliant Star Lord. As soon as he used the battle skill, Mu Lin felt like he had established an obscure connection with an unknown space. Afterwards, a crack several dozen meters in length suddenly appeared in the space above his head. A star, shining with hazy starlight, flew out. The star was not big, only several dozen meters across. It would not raise any attention at all in a sea of stars, but it did hide a terrifying energy. Immediately, a terrifying pressure appeared. The appearance of the star seemed to affect the space there, making him heavier and denser. The star was not condensed from energy. Instead, it was a true star, a star with extraordinary power. At the same time, half a sword suddenly appeared from behind Mu Lin, stabbing towards the back of his head silently. However, Mu Lin had already prepared himself for Jian Chen's laws of space. He was completely covered in a god artifact armor. His defenses were basically airtight. The 9-star sword of heavenly ways stabbed his armor, but it only left behind a shallow mark. It failed to injure Mu Lin at all. Mu Lin's battle prowess was indeed much greater than the 9th heavenly layer infinite prime from the 4 symbols alliance that Jian Chen had killed. After all, he came from the star brilliance plane. Both his cultivation method and battle skills could not be compared to those possessed by regular primordial realm experts. Humph, Jian Chen, my defeat at your hands last time was only because of my carelessness. I'll like to see how you defeat me this time. You even boasted that you'll kill me. You overestimate yourself. Mu Lin snorted coldly. He formed a mental connection with the star he had summoned, making it lock onto Jian Chen's presence firmly. He surged with killing intent. As he looked at the star that had appeared from the spatial crack and sensed the pressure from the space in his surroundings, there was a flash through Jian Chen's head. He immediately understood something. The God-tier battle skill, Starfall, was created by the 9 brilliant Star Lord and contained the truths of the ways of the world. Even though the truths came from a completely different path of cultivation from the laws that Jian Chen comprehended, it became a sort of stimulation in that moment, stimulating Jian Chen's way and allowing him to achieve a sudden comprehension. Abruptly, Jian Chen lifted up his sword and swung it at the star gently. The swing abided to the trajectory of ways. Additionally, it contained a mysterious power. When he slashed out, the 9-star sword of heavenly ways in his hand completely vanished as if it had fused with the surroundings. Crack. Silently, the star that fell from the sky was directly split into 2 down the middle. The tremendous energy inside immediately leaked away, and with a boom, it exploded and collapsed space. Impossible. Mu Lin stared at the star in complete disbelief. Starfall was different from other god-tier battle skills. It was more like a special secret technique than a god-tier battle skill, as it was created by the 9 brilliant Star Lord. Every single star had been forged by the 9 brilliant Star Lord before being subsequently imbued with his great might. Even though Mu Lin was unable to summon the most powerful star with his cultivation as a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime, he was able to threaten some weaker chaotic primes. As a result, Mu Lin believed that even if he could not kill Jian Chen with a single strike, Jian Chen would have to pay a certain price at the very least to fend off the attack. But in the end, Jian Chen easily dealt with his starfall, and he even seemed to do it effortlessly. Mu Lin struggled to accept that. It basically meant that Jian Chen's strike was close to matching up to the attacks of chaotic primes. Jian Chen did not strike out again after destroying Mu Lin's starfall in a single move. He remained where he was in a trance as if he was daydreaming. His mind remained fixed on the move earlier. The feeling, comprehension, and usage of the laws of space and the laws of the sword allowed him to enter a wondrous state. Mu Lin was uneasy. He had been startled by Jian Chen's strike earlier. As he stared at Jian Chen, he suddenly felt something unfathomable for some reason. Making up his mind, he no longer tried to fight anymore. He turned around and fled towards the 4 Symbols Alliance. Space can actually be combined with the sword in such a manner, Jian Chen murmured. His eyes became extremely bright. He stared at Mu Lin as he fled and slowly raised the 9-star sword of heavenly ways. He simply swung it gently towards Mu Lin from far away. The swing contained the truths of the laws of the sword and the laws of space. It also seemed to follow the trajectory of ways, fusing with the ways and the world. When he slashed out, the sword immediately vanished as if it had truly fused with space. Several hundred kilometers away, Mu Lin immediately felt his hairs stand on end. A bone-chilling coldness ran down from the top of his head to the bottom of his spine. Chapter 2582, The Shadowless Lifetaking Strike. Mu Lin was frightened. Who knows how long it had been since he experienced such an intense feeling of danger. Most importantly, this sense of danger came from all directions, so he felt like he could not dodge it. Mu Lin surged with energy as the low-quality god artifact armor on his body emitted dazzling light as he pushed its defenses to the limit. However, in the next moment, intense pain suddenly appeared. It immediately made Mu Lin's face pale. He subconsciously lowered his head to take a look, and immediately, he was frightened out of his wits. His body had actually been cut in half along the waist. Even his god artifact had been cut into two. Against the attack of unknown origins, even the low-quality god artifact was unable to do anything. It had been cut in half like a piece of paper. Now, only Mu Lin's top half hovered in the air. His legs and everything else fell down with the other half of the god artifact. Who is it? Who launched a sneak attack against me? Mu Lin called out in fright. He had been utterly frightened by this strange attack. Even though he had realized that it was from Chen, he refused to believe it. He would rather believe that a chaotic prime had launched a sneak attack against him. So powerful. In the distance, Chen was stunned as well. He stared at Mu Lin's two halves as he felt great shock. I managed to comprehend such a powerful technique from that moment alone. However, it's only one move. I'll call this move the Shadowless Lifetaking strike, Chen murmured. Even he himself was uncertain whether the technique he comprehended was a god-tier battle skill or a secret technique. Chen arrived before Mu Lin silently with the laws of space. He looked at the frightened Mu Lin calmly, but his eyes were shining with killing intent. Mu Lin was finally overcome with fear when he sensed Chen's killing intent, but he tried putting on a strong front and said, Chen, I admit that I've underestimated you, but so what if you've defeated me? I come from the Star Brilliance plane. I belong to the organization under the 9 Brilliant Star Lord. Are you bold enough to kill me? Why wouldn't I? Chen snorted coldly. He slowly raised his 9-star sword of heavenly ways and killing intent surged from him. He seemed to have made up his mind, making him fearless in his actions. Chen's battle prowess had multiplied after comprehending the Shadowless Lifetaking strike. Mu Lin's destroyed god artifact was now as fragile as paper in Chen's eyes. Don't you dare. Mu Lin tried acting tough. Chen's ice-cold killing intent left him truly afraid. Although he was a primordial realm expert, he struggled to maintain his usual composure in the face of death. Patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan, please stay your hand. He belongs to the 9 Brilliant Star Lord after all. A slight punishment is enough. If you really kill him, it'll be troublesome. At this moment, an old voice rang out in Chen's head. The moment that the voice rang out, Chen immediately felt a powerful and mysterious power influence the space around him. As if space had been locked down, he felt like he had fallen into mud, and all his actions consequently became sluggish. The mysterious power was far, far greater than Chen's level. They could not be compared with one another. Even with Chen's laws of space, he was unable to do anything about his sluggishness. Who are you? Chen's face sank, and he asked sternly. I am the Gentle Breeze Ancestor, one of the 5 ancestors of the 4 Symbols Alliance. Patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan, I hope that you can do it for the sake of me and spare him, said the Gentle Breeze Ancestor. The 4 Symbols Alliance? I still haven't gotten around to you, yet you still have the audacity to plead for mercy? I am definitely killing this person today. If your 4 Symbols Alliance dares to interfere, I'll go to your headquarters to kill him, Chen snorted coldly. He was extremely determined, leaving no room for negotiation. At the same time, there was a flash beside Chen, and Su Ran arrived from the Tian Yuan clan. Her face was slightly cold. With a wave of her hand, the invisible restraint around Chen immediately vanished. Sigh, a long sigh rang out in the sky. The senses of the Gentle Breeze Ancestor's soul had departed. Even though saving Mu Lin would be a piece of cake for him, he did not choose to do so in the end. He had a lot of worries. He did not hope to offend the Tian Yuan clan and end up provoking the heavenly palace of Bishing before the Four Symbols Alliance had truly managed to ally themselves with the young Star Lord. Spurt. Chen struck out without a second thought. His sword shone with starlight as he directly slashed out. Under Mulin's fearful gaze of disbelief, he beheaded him. Sharp sword chi directly tore his soul to shreds, killing him off. Mulin is dead. The moment Mulin died, a heavy voice rang out from a majestic divine hall from the Star Brilliance Mountain on the distant Star Brilliance Plain. The renowned 9 Brilliant Star Lord sat on a throne on the highest floor of the divine hall. His deep eyes flickered with starlight as he stared off into the distance in a daze. It was as if his gaze had pierced through the endless sea of stars, allowing him to see the distant cloud plain. Everything is going according to plan. Tian Yao, I hope you don't disappoint me, the 9 Brilliant Star Lord said sternly. At that moment, a smear of coldness suddenly appeared in his eyes. After killing Mulin, Chen returned to the Tian Yuan clan with Mulin's corpse. He placed his head before Tian Shuang. Tian Shuang felt a multitude of emotions as she looked at the bloody head and Chen's clothes that were messed up from the battle. She could not help but think about how the Godsfallen clan had annulled the marriage proposal with the Xuandao Empire, which made her sigh emotionally. Only a while ago, Chen was a puny overgod, someone tiny who did not raise much of her attention at all. But now, he possessed such great strength. Chen had personally slain a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime that the Xuandao Empire could do nothing amount in such a short time. Tian Shuang was thrown into emotional turmoil as a result. Senior Tian Shuang, Princess Xinger and Princess Lan'er are in this divine hall. Chen took out the divine hall from Mulin and directly passed it to Tian Shuang. This divine hall was a low-quality god artifact. The artifact spirit had already yielded to Chen in fear. It now sat in Chen's hand as the size of a fist. Thank you, thank you. Tian Shuang felt mixed emotions as she constantly thanked him. She accepted the divine hall from Chen and said in a rather self-deprecating manner, "How can you call me senior now?" Chen, you better call me by just my name. That works, Chen agreed after a slight hesitation. When he met Tian Shuang for the first time, she was a supreme primordial realm expert in his eyes. He was supposed to call her senior back then. However, the title of senior did not come with age. Instead, it came with strength. With his current strength, there was truly no need for him to refer to Tian Shuang as his senior any longer. Of course, the people he respected were exceptions. Chen, this person hails from such a great background. Will his death lead to problems for your Tian Yuan clan? Tian Shuang asked with slight worry. Chapter 2583, Internal Fragmentation, Don't worry. Our Tian Yuan clan has already fallen out with them. There will be a great battle sooner or later, Chen shrugged and said without minding it so that Tian Shuang would stop worrying. Tian Shuang had already taken the divine hall from Chen. She released Xinger and Lan'er, who had been trapped within the divine hall. After so many years, the two princesses became even more beautiful. Not only did the two of them possess the unique physique of the heavenly Yin body and the innate body of Weis, but their beauty was also enough to outshine the moon. They also possessed a noble bearing due to how they were raised. It was enough to entice people into wanting to dominate them. But now, both of them were pale. Despair, sorrow, and fury filled their eyes. They had been abducted by Mulin. They had watched the two ancestors of the Xuandao Empire die, as well as their father being buried under the rubble with heavy wounds. All of this had been firmly embedded in their heads. They struggled to accept this as they had never encountered anything like this before. Xinger and Lan'er turned around with rather hollow eyes as soon as they emerged from the divine hall. They immediately saw Tian Shuang standing beside them, and a sliver of color finally appeared in their dim eyes. Ancestor. Xinger and Lan'er both sobbed sorrowfully. They clung onto her arms as tears rolled down their cheeks. Their bodies trembled gently. Xinger, Lanner, don't be scared. You're safe now. Jian Chen saved you. Tian Shuang looked at the two of them rather tenderly. She said gently, Xinger, Lanner, why don't you thank young Master Jian Chen? With that, Xinger and Lanner raised their heads and looked around. They saw the bloody head nearby with a single glance, and hatred immediately filled their eyes. Afterwards, they looked at Jian Chen and thanked him. They were in grief. Ancestor, who is this person? What grievances does our Xuandao Empire have with him? Why has he come to destroy our Xuandao Empire? Xinger stared at Mulin's head in hatred as she grinded her teeth. He doesn't have any grievances with your Xuandao Empire at all. I'm guessing he only attacked you because you belong to the Righteous Alliance, Jian Chen answered Xinger's question. Jian Chen knew extremely well that Mulin had come for their unique physiques. Destroying the Xuandao Empire was probably secondary. However, in order to spare the two princesses from the psychological burden, he made the Righteous Alliance the reason. Otherwise, if the two princesses learnt that they were the reason for the crisis of the Xuandao Empire, they would probably never forgive themselves. They would dwell in pain and self-blame. As long as I exist, the Xuandao Empire will not be destroyed. What happened this time is only a test in the Xuandao Empire's path to becoming powerful. Xinger, Lanner, stay in the Tian Yuan clan for now. I'll return to the Xuandao Empire and check on the situation there, said Tian Shuang. She had completely calmed down now, recovering her demeanor of an ancestor of the Xuandao Empire. With that, she left the Tian Yuan clan alone, returning to the Xuandao Empire with her disc of heavenly ways. At the same time, the 5 ancestors of the 4 Symbols Alliance gathered together in the headquarters. Mulin is dead. We can't keep this a secret. He's the only bodyguard that has come from the Star Brilliance plane with the young Star Lord. His death will probably upset the young Star Lord. Gentle Breeze, you clearly could have saved Mulin, but you didn't. Was that really the right decision? Asked Gongji of the 5 ancestors. There was clearly some doubt in her voice. If we don't interfere, we can remain uninvolved, but once we do, we'll really be a part of it all. The young Star Lord seems to be on our side for now, but we haven't really managed to ally ourselves with the Star Brilliance Mountain yet. As a result, we can't interfere at all. Once we offend Jian Chen, that'll be equivalent to offending the heavenly palace of Bisheng, said the Gentle Breeze ancestor with a lot of worry. Gentle Breeze, you're far too cowardly. Have you ever considered that if we keep doing things half-heartedly and remain unwilling to truly assist the young Star Lord, he'll be repulsed by us and leave us in the end? I know you're thinking for the Alliance. You both want to ally us with the young Star Lord while not offending the heavenly palace of Bisheng. However, if you don't pay a certain price, how will you ever get anything in return? Said Wu Lu of the 5 ancestors firmly. He clearly disagreed with the Gentle Breeze ancestors' thoughts. Gentle Breeze, I originally thought of the same thing as you, thinking that we should just try roping the young Star Lord and avoid offending the Tian Yuan clan and heavenly palace of Bisheng. However, with the developments so far, I've gradually understood something. How can things be so perfect in this world? I think it's time for us to make our decision about this whole matter. If we keep acting half-heartedly, we'll only lose out on everything and end up suffering instead, Gong Ji said sternly. She agreed with Wu Lu on this. Today, the first disagreement between the ancestors of the 4 Symbols Alliance happened since the founding of the Alliance. In the end, they ended their meeting in disagreement. What? Mulin is dead? He was personally slain by Jian Chen. Before long, the young Star Lord received the news of Mulin's death in a luxurious residence within the 4 Symbols Alliance. He immediately flew into a rage. All right. All right. All right. Jian Chen, I swear I will never spare you for killing a person that belongs to me. I will never return to the Star Brilliance plane until you are dead. The young Star Lord grinded his teeth as his face darkened from anger. At that moment, his killing intent and resentment towards Jian Chen had reached the maximum. Ever since he was born, he had never resented or hated someone so much. Young Star Lord, if you plan on dealing with the Tian Yuan clan, I can assist you. At this moment, a voice rang out. An old woman with peppered hair walked in gradually. She was one of the 5 ancestors of the 4 Symbols Alliance, Gongji. And me. Behind her, Wu Lu appeared as well. 2 of the 5 ancestors had come to the young Star Lord's residence together. They kept their presences concealed and seemed just like mortals. Chapter 2584, A Letter, You're Willing to Take Action? The young Star Lord did not lighten up from that at all. Instead, he frowned. He already knew that the 4 Symbols Alliance had always been half-hearted about dealing with the Tian Yuan clan, so he never really liked the ancestors of the 4 Symbols Alliance. As a matter of fact, he was slightly repulsed by them. Gong Ji and Wu Lu arrived before the young Star Lord. They presented themselves in an extremely ordinary manner, without putting on any airs at all. Gentle Breeze is too fearful with whatever he does. He worries that our participation will lead to a war with the Righteous Alliance, but I think that with the young Star Lord, they won't have the courage to take such action, said Gong Ji. You can't blame Gentle Breeze for this. Gentle Breeze is considering the bigger picture. After all, our 4 Symbols Alliance isn't the opponent of the Righteous Alliance right now, Wu Lu spoke for Gentle Breeze. Although there were disagreements between the 5 of them about the Tian Yuan clan, they were still allied with one another. At the same time, the Gentle Breeze ancestor did possess quite some prestige in the 4 Symbols Alliance. Young Star Lord, you know that the Tian Yuan clan is backed by the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng, right? The Heavenly Palace of Bisheng is far more powerful than anything our 4 Symbols Alliance can deal with. We can destroy the Tian Yuan clan for you, but you must help us deal with the threat of the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng first, Wu Lu continued. As if he could sense that the young Star Lord was repulsed by the 4 Symbols Alliance, he directly laid everything out on the table. That's right. If there wasn't the threat of the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng and the Righteous Alliance, we could easily destroy the measly Tian Yuan clan, Gong Ji said coldly. It was as if she did not take the Tian Yuan clan seriously at all. All right. If that's the case, I'll promise to protect you in the future. If the people from the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng come to make trouble, I will stand forward personally. The current Heavenly Palace of Bisheng depends on the First Majesty alone. Do they really think they're the same as in the past? Moreover, the First Majesty has grievances with the heaven-splitting ancestor. If the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng falls out with our Star Brilliance Mountain as well at a time like this, they would just be looking to be destroyed, the young Star Lord said coldly. There's even less reason for you to worry about the Righteous Alliance. Once my training ends, I can call on the experts of the Star Brilliance Plane at any time to destroy them. The young Star Lord was extremely arrogant. However, he indeed possessed the ability to do so. The 9 Brilliant Star Lord was the supreme ruler on the Star Brilliance Plane. Although the Star Brilliance Plane was not exactly under his complete control, there was almost no difference from that. As the only child of the 9 Brilliant Star Lord, the young Star Lord possessed influence that could not be underestimated. We don't have to worry since the young Star Lord has said that. As if Gong Ji and Wu Lu had finally been liberated from the burden of worry, they could not help but smile at ease. In reality, basically no one who possessed a cultivation like theirs would want to rely on others. However, the threat from the Righteous Alliance forced their 4 Symbols Alliance to find someone to depend on. Otherwise, even if they did not offend the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng, they would still meet their end when the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak made a breakthrough in cultivation. Come with me tomorrow morning to destroy the Tian Yuan clan. I want Shangguan Mu'er alive so that she can serve me obediently. As for Jian Chen, I want to cut him to pieces personally. The young Star Lord smiled evilly. We will support the young Star Lord. We need to destroy the Tian Yuan clan quickly, just in case the Righteous Alliance sends reinforcements, said Gong Ji. Young Star Lord, someone has sent a letter. It's specially directed to the young Star Lord, a guard reported from outside. Afterwards, he walked in politely with an envelope in his hand. Hold on. Be careful. Gong Ji and Wu Lu changed in expression. Before the young Star Lord could accept the envelope, they reached out and the envelope flew over, restrained by powerful energy. They said sternly, "There's almost no people who know the young Star Lord's identity. How does the person who sent the letter know of this? And he even knows the young Star Lord is in our Four Symbols Alliance. We have to be careful." "Humph, you're all cowards. Who dares to harm me in the Saints' world?" The young Star Lord said extremely confidently. "There aren't any lingering traces of presences." "Who sent the letter?" Gong Ji and Wu Lu thought. They carefully inspected the envelope. After confirming there was nothing wrong with it, they could only hand it to the young Star Lord. The envelope held a letter written on a beast's hide. The young Star Lord opened the envelope and took out the beast's hide. The beast's hide was as thin as paper and extremely tough. However, it was completely blank, without any words at all. An imprint of consciousness. The young Star Lord murmured. He had great insight, so he could tell with a single glance that the beast's hide possessed an imprint of consciousness. An imprint of consciousness was like a medium. As long as someone that the owner of the imprint recognized made contact with the imprint of consciousness with the senses of their soul, they would be able to undergo a conversation from a great distance away. However, if it were someone who was not recognized, nothing would happen. The young Star Lord was interested. He expanded the senses of his soul without any hesitation, making contact with the imprint of consciousness on the beast's hide. "Can you tell who left behind this imprint of consciousness? Is it someone we know?" Wu Lu asked Gong Ji secretly. The person who left it behind purposefully concealed their identity. "It's difficult to tell." Gong Ji shook her head gently. The light in her eyes flickered with uncertainty. Very soon, the young Star Lord opened his eyes. He smiled mysteriously and murmured, "I never thought it would be like this. Interesting, quite interesting. Young Star Lord, may I ask who left this imprint of consciousness?" Gong Ji asked. "You all know this person. His name is Tian," said the young Star Lord. "What? Tian?" Gong Ji and Wu Lu were shocked. However, soon afterwards, their hearts sank. They became rather worried. Tian had actually made contact with the young Star Lord. Did the Righteous Alliance plan on roping in the young Star Lord as well? This was bad news to them. They knew extremely well that the connection between the Tian Yuan clan and the Righteous Alliance was not actually very deep. The only reason they had said all that was to prevent the young Star Lord from going to the Righteous Alliance and leaving them. The situation has changed. We can't destroy the Tian Yuan clan so soon. We need to pressure them slowly and force out the people from the Righteous Alliance. The young Star Lord smiled slyly as if victory was within his grasp. Chapter 2585, The Argument Between the Protectors. Looking at how confident the young Star Lord was, Wu Lu and Gong Ji looked at each other as their brows furrowed. They had already guessed something. On the distant desolate plain, many people still had not forgotten Chen's name even after so many years. This was despite the fact that the mess Chen created back then had already settled down. It was just that very few people mentioned it. Only the huge, gaping hole on the plain indicated just how great of a disturbance Chen had caused in the past. The huge hole was naturally created from the astonishing strike from the 8 experts deep underground. However, the hole seemed much smaller compared to the past. Cultivators from various large organizations were slowly filling it in. It would return to its previous state before long. The celestial sword saint remained in the Sword God Mountains, ignoring the affairs happening around him. He held an extremely great status, firmly holding the position as the greatest expert of the desolate plain. Meanwhile, open and concealed struggles continued between the organizations on the plain. The desolate plain did not seem any different from before Chen had come. Of course, that was only on the surface. Intelligent people could clearly sense that the situation on the entire desolate plain had undergone an overwhelming change. This was because the Radiant Saint Hall that was only average among all the peak organizations on the desolate plain before was now showing signs of being able to conquer the entire plain. This was all because the Radiant Saint Hall possessed a few protector swords. At this moment, one of the wielders of the protector swords, Han Xian, sat atop the soaring cloud's peak. He faced the cliff as he stared at the sea of clouds in a daze. Behind Han Xian was a scholarly, middle-aged man. He possessed a striking appearance and was an infinite prime. He possessed the bearing of someone who held power, making him awe-inspiring. However, at this moment, his face was filled with smiles. He seemed rather restrained as he stood behind Han Xian. He said some things carefully, and he sounded rather awkward. Han Xian, I know you have great prejudice towards the clan, but no matter what, the blood of the Han family flows through your veins. The two ancestors in the clan talk about you daily. They say that you're the greatest pride of our Han family, and all the important members of the clan take pride in you, Han Xian, whether it be the two ancestors or the young children in the clan, they all think about you every day. Do you think you can make some time and go back to have a look? The scholarly, middle-aged man was the patriarch of the Han family. He held an extremely great status in the Han family, but now, he seemed very careful before Han Xian. He even spoke gently, kind of like he was fawning over Han Xian. It was as if he was afraid of displeasing him. Han Xian sat on the edge of the cliff silently. He stared at the clouds in a daze and did not move at all. He only sighed inside and thought, if I hadn't obtained a protector sword, I wonder what I'll be like right now. Han Xian looked down at the foot of the soaring cloud's peak. Many peak lords had gathered there along with two elders. These people had come to visit him. They waited patiently at the foot of the mountain. Without his permission, even the two elders dared not set foot on the soaring cloud's peak. Dong! At this moment, a long bell rang out from the sacred hall that stood above the clouds, resounding through the entire Radiant Saint Hall. This was a signal to summon the entire upper echelon of the Radiant Saint Hall. Sir! A white figure flew out from a cave on the mountain, quickly arriving before Han Xian. She was Biyao. She wore the white robes that represented Radiant Saint Masters and stood gracefully. She possessed an otherworldly bearing and a terrifying power seemed to be hidden within her, as if it were hibernating. That was the power from the Protector's sword that ranked 4th, Cliffgrinder's sword. It's Junior Biyao. Junior Biyao has become even prettier since the last time I saw you. The patriarch of the Han family smiled as he greeted Biyao politely. Biyao furrowed her brows and subconsciously took a step away from the patriarch of the Han family, as if being called Junior Biyao left her extremely uncomfortable. Biyao, let's go. Han Xian stood up. He ignored the patriarch of the Han family and called Biyao, taking to the air with her and heading directly to the sacred hall. As wielders of protector swords, Biyao and Han Xian possessed extremely great statuses in the Radiant Saint Hall. They could enter the sacred hall and Tower of Radiance freely. Even the leader of the Radiant Saint Hall had no right to control the protectors. However, they had already grown accustomed to living on the soaring cloud's peak, so even after they became protectors, the two of them continued to stay on the soaring cloud's peak. They rarely ventured into the sacred hall. At the same time, the two elders waiting at the foot of the mountain flew towards the sacred hall as well. Before long, the sacred hall was filled with people. The leader of the Radiant Saint Hall, Chen, the 8 vice leaders, the wielders of the protector swords, Han Xian, Biyao, Xian Ming, Donglin Yanxue, and Gong Sun Ji, along with all the elders were gathered there now. Gong Sun Ji, what's the important matter for gathering us all here by ringing the sacred bell? Chen sat at the very front and asked Gong Sun Ji. Gong Sun Ji stood with his hands behind his back. He looked around and glanced past the 8 vice leaders and all the elders. He said, I've already found Chen's whereabouts. He's currently hiding in a place called the Tian Yuan clan in the southern region of the Cloud Plain. That little thief used the name of Chongyang to infiltrate our Radiant Saint Hall and stole our greatest legacy, the method of the Exalted Saint. It's time for us to take back the cultivation method now. quit spewing lies, Gong Sun-ji. My senior brother is no thief. He changed his name and hid in our Radiant Saint Hall because he had the Inata Tower on him. He was hunted down by all the experts of the saint's world. And as for the method of the exalted saint, why don't you think about it was exactly him who received it, not anyone else? It clearly means that the method of the exalted saint is supposed to go to my senior brother, Biyao retorted firmly as soon as Gong Sun-ji finished speaking, showing no respect towards him. They were both protectors, so they could not harm each other at all, as the protector swords forbid it. As a result, the protectors did not fear one another. It goes without saying just how wondrous a Grand Exalt's legacy is. There has only ever been someone who is chosen by a supreme legacy like this. There has never been an example where someone steals it, unless they're exceptional peak experts. Chen is clearly not the latter, so I agree with Junior Biyao. The legacy chose Chen. He did not steal it, said Dong Lin Yanxue, disagreeing with Gong Sun-ji as well. Chapter 2586, Challenging the Leader. Gong Sun-ji snorted coldly. He looked at Biyao and Dong Lin Yanxue in fury and said, the legacy came from my ancestor. Even if it's supposed to go to someone, it's supposed to go to a descendant. Chen is an outsider and a member of the marshal's soul lineage. What right does he have to obtaining the legacy? Moreover, my ancestor's legacy had already chosen me in the Tower of Radiance. It was Chen who forcefully stole it. He stole the method of the exalted saint from the legacy, or the cultivation method would have been mine already. Gong Sun-ji looked at the several dozen elders present and asked, tell me, is Chen a thief or not? Isn't that obvious? Everything has been laid out on the table. Chen is obviously a thief, an elder said as soon as Gong Sun-ji asked the question. Most importantly, Chen is a member of the marshal's soul lineage. The supreme cultivation method of our Radiant Saint Hall cannot end up in the hands of the marshal's soul lineage. We need to retrieve the Grand Exalt's cultivation method, the elders asserted from below. At least half of them spoke out and opposed Chen. Gong Sun-ji could not help but smile complacently when he saw so many people stand on his side. Ever since he gained a protector sword, ever since he learnt that he was the descendant of a Grand Exalt, his wild ambitions had swelled. Han Xian and Biyao had spent the past few years cultivating, whereas he had moved around in the Sacred Hall, using his special identity as a protector to begin developing his own faction. Now, roughly half of the elders in the Radiant Saint Hall stood on his side. As a result, some elders immediately supported him when he expressed his opinion. Biyao and Dong Lin Yanxue's faces darkened in anger when they saw so many elders voice their opinions against Chen, but they could do nothing about it. After all, these elders were their seniors. They possessed great authority in the Radiant Saint Hall and were respected. Against so many elders, they too felt powerless. The leader of the Radiant Saint Hall, Chen, watched on calmly. He said nothing. He did not voice his opinion regarding this matter. Cough, cough. With the gentle coughs, the noisy hall immediately fell quiet. One of the vice leaders seated there stood up and said, since we already know Chen's whereabouts, I think we should take back the method of the exalted saint as soon as possible. With that, the vice leader clasped his fist towards Chen and asked, I wonder what the leader thinks. Immediately, all the people in the hall looked towards the leader of the Radiant Saint Hall. Whether the Radiant Saint Hall would attack Chen and take back the method of the exalted saint would be completely up to the leader. After all, the leader was the person who held the greatest authority in the Radiant Saint Hall. He was the final decision maker. Even the wielders of the protector swords could not match up to him in terms of that. Chen remained calm. He showed no particular emotions at all. He glanced at Gong Sun-ji deeply before scanning past Biyao, Dong Lin Yanxue, Han Xian, Xian Ming, and Xian Zhan. He said, what do you think? You better speak your minds as well. After all, you are protectors of the Radiant Saint Hall. With that, Dong Lin Yanxue and Biyao immediately began to retaliate. It doesn't matter whether he's Changyang or Chen. He was my student in the past after all, my proudest student. If you plan on targeting him, I will never agree to it, Han Xian expressed his personal opinion. 3 of the 6 protectors had already spoken that they opposed doing anything to Chen. Gong Sunji snorted coldly. He glanced past Han Xian, Biyao, and Donglin Yanxue coldly before folding his arms and looking to another side. He was not surprised by this. He already utterly resented the 3 of them. The vice leaders and the elders of the Radiant Saint Hall and looked towards the father and son pair, Xian Zhan and Xian Ming. Without a single doubt, Gong Sunji was the person who wanted the method of the Exalted Saint back the most. Out of the 6 protectors, only the duo had yet to express their opinion. Xian Ming thought over it a little when he sensed everyone's gaze. He said, "I'll do whatever my father does. What my father chooses is my choice as well." With that, Xian Ming shut up and stood to one side quietly. Vice Leader Xian Zhan, the method of the Exalted Saint is the greatest legacy of our Radiant Saint Hall. We can't let it end up in the hands of the Marshal's soul lineage, or it'll form a great problem in the future. As a matter of fact, our Radiant Saint Hall might be destroyed as a result, said Gong Sunji. The opinions of the protectors would influence the final decision of the leader, so before Xian Zhan had spoken, Gong Sunji butted in and attempted to persuade him. Xian Ming thought about the whole thing. Only then did he ask, "Gong Sunji, may I ask how your cultivation of the secret techniques from the legacy is going?" Gong Sunji frowned as he felt contempt inside. He thought Xian Zhan was threatening him. He thought Xian Ming wanted the secret techniques from the legacy, or he would not stand on his side. All the ancient secret techniques and battle skills in the legacy are extremely strange. To be honest, I haven't managed to comprehend any single one of them completely, which is why the method of the Exalted Saint is crucial to practicing these ancient, powerful secret techniques. Without this crucial cultivation method, these secret techniques are useless. Gong Sunji looked right at Xian Zhan. Although Xian Zhan was both a wielder of a protector's sword and the leader of the 8 vice leaders, he showed no respect at all. Instead, he began to despise Xian Zhan secretly due to his question. He continued, "Of course, if Vice Leader Xian Zhan is interested in these secret techniques and doesn't believe me, I'm willing to make a few public so that everyone here can check." "There's no need for that." Xian Zhan waved his hand. He said, "I'm not interested in the items of the legacy. I just want to confirm some of my thoughts and now, I've basically confirmed them all." Xian Zhan paused and looked at the leader. He said, "Leader, I think this matter isn't as easy as it seems. We need some time to properly investigate it and get to the bottom of it all." "What's there to investigate? It's such a simple matter, so why do you need to investigate it all?" Gong Sunji flew into a fury. What Xian Zhan said basically meant that out of all the protectors, everyone apart from him stood with Chen. As Gong Sunji was furious, he felt extremely puzzled as well. He could understand why Biyao, Donglin Yanxue, and Han Xian would support Chen. After all, they had ties with him in the first place. What truly confused him was Xian Zhan's decision. "Enough. Stop arguing," said the leader of the Radiant Saint Hall. He sat calmly on the throne and said with great authority, "It's rather strange that Chen could obtain a portion of the legacy. I will converse with the artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance about this. Once I understand everything, I will make my decision." The artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance has already fallen into a slumber again. If it doesn't wake up, when are we supposed to wait until? Gong Sunji snarled. He refused to accept this very much. His face had already darkened. Perhaps, he might awaken very soon. Yuan glanced at Gong Sunji deeply and felt even more displeased with him. "The meeting ends here. Everyone is dismissed." Yuan ended the meeting and immediately stood up, about to leave. "Hold on." Gong Sunji called out. His face was sunken as he stared right at Yuan with an icy cold gaze. He said, "Leader, the method of the Exalted Saint is the greatest legacy of our Radiant Saint Hall. It's utterly crucial to us. Yet, you always remained reluctant to take it back as the current leader of the Radiant Saint Hall, allowing the Marshal's soul lineage to grow more powerful with each coming day. What intentions are you harboring? You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.